Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your man Frank Castle, Sorcerer Supreme, right here at IamWeAreFearLess, the podcast. Thanks everybody for tuning in. A lot of success with getting the information out there because that's what this is all about. But before we start the show, don't forget, every Saturday night, you could join me and my etherical translator Paula on Fearless on truthfrequencyradio.com, 9 p.m. EST. Every Saturday night, you come check us out. And I tell you the story of the journey. You know how it goes. Plant Mother Ayahuasca fell into my life in the most, at the most opportune time, but in the craziest way. And I went from rapper and inspector to shaman, or back to my original occupation, lifetime after lifetime. So don't forget to check that out. And check out the website, IamWeAreFearLess.com. We have lots of great artists, lots of great artwork, t-shirts, hats, mugs, pillows, blankets, everything. The artists get 50% of everything on the price. So let's help them out. Let's do the right thing. Let's spread the love. And don't forget to be kind and check out our YouTube page, Frank Castle Fearless, and on Twitter at HeistClick, HeistClick. Sorry about that long, annoying intro. I got to get one and just kind of like plug that in. But so I don't have to run through that each time. But today, welcoming onto the podcast, one of my favorite people, a shaman buddy of mine from Florida, personal trainer, Shaman Jimmy. How you doing, brother?
Hey, Frank. I'm doing well. How's everything?
I'm doing pretty good. Pretty good. It's a monster snowstorm out here right now. It was 70 degrees the other day, and today it's 30 degrees, and the trees are bending. So it's pretty interesting out there. How you doing?
I'm great. I'm doing good. Ready to share my experience here with the others.
Thank you so much, by the way, for coming on. And,
you're very welcome.
And doing this. This is, I would say, the hardest thing for people to do in this world sometimes is talk and communicate.
Correct.
So it takes us to step out of our, with our experience and share it because we can do that. We got to show people it's okay to do, to have the experience and to talk about it. And that they're not alone, of course.
I agree.
So you're a personal trainer?
Yes, I've been a personal trainer since 98.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm originally from D.C., relocated in Florida just to pursue that. And that brought me to this. Take personal training to another level.
Absolutely. Wow, it's like superhero training in the danger room with the X-Men.
Correct.
Do you have an email that you could give out to people?
Yes, my email address is jrdx, like X-ray, IC, @gmail.com.
Awesome, because I know people are going to want to reach out right away after they hear some of the podcasts today.
Great.
Okay, so how did you find me? Let's start there.
Actually, I found you through Chris Geo. One time, going through YouTube, I'm trying to find out more information because everything is limited, and whatever's out there is too, it can be misinforming as well. So I remember one time I stumbled on, how YouTube, you hit a video and it tells you may like this, you may also like this. And I remember he had a podcast about becoming your own shaman. And that always run with me from the very beginning, because even from my first ayahuasca ceremony, the shaman told me that's you have to become your own shaman. I'm not the one doing the work. I'm just the conduit, But ultimately, you have to be, And I was like, all right, let's see what he has to talk about. So at the time, he mentioned you. and I started listening to, the first episode, I think it was Losing My Religion. And it was boot camp from then on. I listened to every episode twice a day. Make sure whatever I didn't get in the morning, I got later on, and started taking notes. Because all this stuff was new to me. I mean, the experiences were great. However, not knowing which direction to go or what a lot of it means, it can be quite challenging.
So okay, I have to back up for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
So when did you start your journey with the
Actually, I started.
psychedelics? Like, I'm really curious.
Um, it was actually last year. Last year, um, the year before that, I started looking into DMT, ayahuasca. There was. But I started getting the information from psychologists, and I was like, okay, there has to be something to this. It's not just. Um, but I didn't pay much attention to it because no one knew about it. No one wanted to talk. You ask anybody where you can get it, it's like, no, you have to go to the jungle. Or I'm like, all right, but it kind of planted the seed. I ended up going to Guatemala for some dental work to remove some platinum from my mouth, and on the way down there, I connected with a shaman, and it just happened to be that same weekend I was there. I'm like, all right, let's book it, let's do it. My brother and I was like, all right, let's go. However, prior to doing that, I've been watching Johnny Ayahuasca's videos. So
One of my favorite people, by the way.
I had all my stuff before I even did everything. I had, a pound of each plant. And I'm like, I'm ready to do this. And I remember listening to a podcast on London Real where this guy is like, look, the first time you may want to do it with a shaman so you understand what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And that kind of stuck with me. And surprisingly, one morning, I was like, you know what? I'm doing this. I'm not waiting. I'm getting it done now. And for some reason, I got a cough attack, a serious cough attack for like maybe 30 minutes. And I text my brother. He's like, did you die? I was like, no, I could. I was like, dude, something's telling me not, just hold tight. I was like, all right. So I did. And it was quite an interesting experience the first time. I get to Guatemala. We do the tobacco purge. Everybody's purging except my brother and I. So I have to drink another cup of tobacco and nothing. And he's looking at me like, okay, something's not working. Just drink more water. And he literally gave us a bucket of water and a bucket to purge in. Finally, after like everybody's going to bed, my brother and I still out there. And finally everything came out, but it was only partial. Like at 2 a.m, I just felt my head pounding. It felt like it was stretching and it compressed, stretching. It's like this weird feeling. Barely made it to the bathroom. That's when everything, whatever needed to come out, came out. My brother, the same thing. He was the last one. This is like an hour after the purge ceremony was done. He's still out there trying to, well, long story short, we had the ceremony the next day. That's when it got interesting because I had to do 3 cups. And the first, everybody's, enjoying their journey. Meanwhile, I'm just standing there. I'm like, man, this sucks. Nothing's happening. Why is it over? And I'm like, no, relax. You're already here. And so he's like, who wants another? I'm like, I'm the first one to raise my hand. And everyone's purging after they drink. And I'm still there like waiting for something to happen. And nothing. So the third time around, he actually filled it to the rim. And he's like, if this doesn't do it, we're going to have to wait. Maybe I'll give you another one. But so that did the trick. And that's when everything, the wow factor kicked in. I purged like maybe 5 times. And that's when I realized I was clairvoyant. because as I look to my brother has my dad's face. And we've been dealing with some stuff with my dad since we were kids. I mean, we literally went to church every single day by force, you know. And these are some of the things that we would always bump heads with my dad, you know, the fear of going to hell and all this other shit. And he never really forgave him for that. Meanwhile, prior to me to going down there, I did a lot of shadow work on myself to kind of release that, because I was like, I don't feel like dealing with all this with some strangers, and who knows what I'm going to see, you know. So,
or what they
I'm
could
looking
possibly bring in, right?
exactly, and I'll get to that. Which later I found out. I'm looking at my brother. I'm like, dude, you need to let that go. He's like, yeah, but it's my dad, and this. I was like, have I ever steered you wrong? He's like, no. Okay, well, just let it go. He said, well, how do you know? And we're the only ones talking. Everyone else is, you know. And the shaman's like, you know, that try to keep it down. Blah blah blah. And I was like, dude, I can see, you look like my dad. I see my dad's face. And he's like, really? And I was like, look, just forgive him. Know that if he could have done things better with the knowledge that we now have, it'd be different. And the minute I said that, he let go and he purged like 3 times. All of a sudden, his face changed. It was his face. And I'm like, and all of a sudden, he's like, oh man, everything feels lighter. And, you know, like, well, look how much you purged. And that's when I realized that we weren't really in a friendly environment, because I started seeing all these like shadows everywhere. And I'm like, there was a lady to my right. I saw her face, and it was not really a pleasant look. And I'm like, okay, I know I'm not tripping. I know this is, you know, but I'm trying to understand what's going on. Same with the person. So I started seeing their true selves, I guess. I don't know. Or whatever was working on with them. Then there was a kid in front of me who had 2 dark spheres like rotating over his head. And he was just like, you know, bopping and moving, and, you know, I guess he was freaking out or something. And I was telling my brother, I was like, look, you see, and he couldn't see it. But for a moment, my brother and I could like telepathically understand each other, which I thought that was like, how is that happening? It didn't matter. That, you know. Later, we found out that we were part of whatever the shaman was doing. He was doing his own ritual behind the scenes. And my brother and I were fortunate enough that it didn't work per se. We were protected. And I found this out just maybe a few months ago. And it was a weird experience, because towards the end, my brother and I would hear like speed metal music in the background. And we're like in the middle of nowhere in Guatemala. And I'm like, where's this music coming from? And then like at 5, 6 in the morning, there's dogs howling, and it was very, very uncomfortable. And I'm like, and I told my boss, I said, something here is not right, you know. And he's like, dude, I keep seeing like these things moving around. And I'm like, okay, well, it's like, look, just, you know, protect your energy and we'll get out of this. Don't worry about it. You know, we learned our lesson. And sure enough, later we found out, you know, this guy wasn't really a light worker per se.
You know, it's amazing you say that. I was with my buddy Eric on his first Aya journey, and the first time he went, it didn't work, and the second time it worked better than expected. But we were listening to music from Peru, like for the ayahuasca session, and whoever was singing, the shaman, my buddy looks over at me. He's like, yo, dude, you got to change the music. And I'm like, nah, we got to wait till we purge, because it was leading to the purge in the song. And he goes, nah, the guy singing, the shaman is a pedophile. And I'm like, what? He goes, dude, you can't see it? And he goes, I could feel it in the song, and it's showing it to me. I said, all right. I got up and I shut it off. And then as I was shutting it off, I didn't see what he was talking about, but I felt the energy, and I immediately erased that. And I thought, I'm never going to any of these places. I don't trust you.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're doing.
And that's the thing. You don't know, because they, you know, I've heard from so many people that they go down there. Oh, we're going to Peru, see the shaman. They know what they're doing, and they leave hooks on you. And I mean, you hear all these stories, and oh, you're feeling light and you had a good experience, but behind the scenes, you have cords and all these things.
They're drawing energy from you and stealing
Yeah,
things and keeping you locked at a certain position.
exactly. And they showed me this. I mean, later on, they would always show me bits and pieces. And I was like, why is this dude always showing up in, my things? Until one day I had to like release, they taught me how to, release, forgive myself and release all these things that were holding me back. And that and that person and a few other people were like somehow attached to me, you know, but it was an experience. Then the thing is, the next day I'm like, all right, because I brought the plants with me to Guatemala. I'm like, all right, we're gonna do it ourselves. We know what we need to do. And my brother and I had an awesome experience. We had like the best experience, And I'm like, all right, you know what? Forget that. I've always been a DIY person since I was very young, taking things apart, reverse engineering. That's like, this cannot be that much different. I just got to know what not to do, kind of thing. And so it began every other week. I'm doing IRA. Things are being removed. I remember the very first one by myself. I just remember them removing this black. It felt like Jello. It was cold and sticky, removed from my face. And each time I would go in, I would set my intention, and they started working on removing this plate off my forehead.
You saw the plate. I'm glad you see it. That's why I wanted to have you on, because you're like me. Okay. You see it.
And there's this plate, and I can feel them prying it and rocking, but I guess they don't want to get too aggressive with it. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And the one time I'm in the living room, and I'm with my girl. I'm like, all right, we're gonna have this experience together, this and that. And she looks like a feline being. Her legs and her feet, they look like cat paws. And I'm like, okay, this is weird, But, but I'm like, all right, whatever. I'm not, And then, actually, let me backtrack a little bit. Prior to that, my brother told me that during the ceremony, when I was talking to him, he said that I looked like a feline being. But he didn't think much of it because he thought it was just, part of the hallucinations or whatever. And that one time back home, I started seeing more of this, and then I started finding out about the Lyran feline beings. And as soon as, 2 weeks after I got back from Guatemala, I went to do my past life regression. That's when I found out even more. Like, yeah, you have some of your guys are from Lyra. That's probably why you're seeing traces of who you were.
All right, now, before we continue,
yeah.
Prior to any of these experiences, did you have an inkling or a clue to any of this stuff we're talking about today?
No.
So you came just like me. I was like, nah, that's comic book stuff or something, or whatever history.
I always had a feeling. I think it would be selfish to think that we're the only ones on this earth, on this universe. For one, it's too vast, But no, initially I did the whole Aya thing because I heard, you can become a better person, work on yourself, but I didn't realize to what extent it was into the spiritual realm, because that was something I was already turned off through my childhood, because growing up was either you believe in Jesus or you're going to be left in the rapture and you're going to hell, and I lived with that fear until I left my house when I was 14, but, going back to experiences, every 2 weeks, I'm doing this, and I'm like, purging and getting things removed. Meanwhile, they're still trying to work this plate, and I'm like, oh. And you don't realize it's there until they start trying to remove it. And all of a sudden, now I'm like self-conscious. Do I have something on my forehead? And in one of the experiences, I remember that my cat was with me, and he's had some hip issues. And normally when you pick him up, he'll cry and scream. And I'm like, all right. So I was like, all right, I understand the energy. I can see these. I can see what's going on. So I started petting him and petting him, and tell how much I love him. And as soon as I was done petting him, I had to go purge. And I'm like, oh, okay, something happened here, because And since then, he's been able to walk around, jump. He's been cool. I'm like, there's more to this, And as I was moving along, I'm like, okay, now I need to figure out how to smoke. The whole purging thing was starting to get to me a little bit. Not, mind you, I'm doing this every 2 weeks, not knowing that I shouldn't, but at the time, things were coming off. My clairvoyancy started increasing. The things I would see, then in that process, they showed me how to transmute, negative energies. And normally, I could tell through my visuals. Sometimes when they weren't pleasant, there was an understanding. Okay, you got to do this. You got to do this, and boom. So I transmute until my visuals were like what they should be. At that point, I got introduced to shrooms, and I was like, man, it's the same thing without the purging, And I remember the very first time, they're similar, but the first time they took me to this place, it's almost like an ER clinic, like the best way I can describe it, because you go in, you get scanned, and after you're scanned and they see that you're clear per se, you go on and do what you got to do. Like, they'll take you through your journey, show you the things that they want to show you, but before that, there's you got to get checked out.
All right, so I've talked about this a lot. You spend the first 15, 20 minutes, perhaps even an hour sometimes, in this weird moment in ayahuasca where the whole beginning, you feel like you're being stared at, and then you feel like something moving through you, and then you could feel it looking at you from a different angle. And
yes,
fortunate for me, myself, and my experience, I could see what's happening. And for so many times, I'm like, what is going on? And I realized I was sitting, like, if they were looking at my belly, I would be looking back at them from my stomach. So it looked like a weird red room with some yellow stuff in it. And I'm like, what? But it was on the spiritual end. And I'm going, what is this happening? And then the eye comes in and looks, and it's staring at me, and it's moving around the room. And then I could see the scanning occur. Eventually I got it. Now it became one of my favorite parts. Like, quick, give me a scan. Make sure there's no parasites in me. But in the beginning, I was going with them piece by piece. Like, what are you doing to me? What's happening?
Yeah.
And then they'd show me rooms in me. It looked like there was shit in the corners of the room, literally. Like toilets that weren't clean. And then they'd be like, what are you going to do about that? And I'm like, clean that shit up, man.
I remember one time, we went camping, and I went with that intention to remove blockages, and anything holding me back, okay, I need to remove now, And I'm laying down in the middle of the tent, and I'm getting the visuals, and there's a certain sound that ayahuasca, I don't know how to explain it. Like, you can hear your cells moving, or it's a certain sound. And I could see this, and all of a sudden my mind's eye just starts filling up with shit. It's like think of a TV screen, and it starts filling up with shit, and it's brown, and it keeps packing, and all of a sudden I just feel that urge to purge again. And I get out of the tent, and I'm just dry heaving. I'm not even purging anything. I think it was more symbolical than me actually getting stuff out.
It's like the energy has to get out.
Yeah. And then I'm laying down there, and the visuals were like crystal clear. Like, it was a whole new interface to my mind's eye. And there was always this tune when ayahuasca was started, or even towards the end, that you could hear it. Now, till today, I'm still, wondering what that is. It kind of reminds me of Centipede, the sound of Centipede. the video game,
Right.
but very, very subtle. But then later on, going in with the mushroom, every time I get scanned, I would see them remove. They would show me like worms, black goo, and constantly that rocking of the forehead. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, listen, whatever you guys are doing, you need to like get it off, because it's kind of annoying, because you're trying to lay down and you feel them moving your head back and forth and it's like just and just I can take it. Don't worry about it. But it took a while until one day during a DMT trip, this thing came off, and I was like, wow. It was like I had a 10-pound plate on my forehead. And as I would move along, they would always, remove things. And they would show it to me, and I'm like, is that me? They're like, and they'll shake this, I could, from the corner of my eyes, I could see there's two beings every time, a male and a female. And they'll show it to me, like, I was like, what do you keep showing? I'm done with it. And then I realized my dreams started getting a little bit more lucid, my intuition. What else? A lot of things started changing from the physical aspect. Certain behaviors completely gone, fears completely gone. I remember at the beginning during DMT experiences, I remember the very first time, I'm like, all right, I got this stuff. I'm getting ready. I'm nervous because, you hear things, and okay, I'm finally about to experience it. And I think I took 2 steps, and that's as far as I went. So I'm trying to smoke this at my sink and trying to make it to the bed. That didn't happen. I made it halfway. I'm on the floor.
I'll just lay right here.
As far as I'm going. And I felt this like anxiety, like I couldn't breathe. And it got like super intense. And someone put their hands on my forearm, kind of like, relax, we got you, And I was like, oh shit, someone touched me. And I'm like, my guides are here. They have to be here, That's when I realized, okay, there's more to this than I know. Then I went on a DMT. I'm not going to say binge, but it was like every other day for like 2 weeks. And each time I would feel their presence. Sometimes they'll put their hands on me, kind of like calm down. But the one time that really, really like took me off guard was they did dental work on me. And as soon as I finished smoking, I laid down, and all of a sudden I just feel someone like grab my jaw, they open my mouth, and I feel like they're polishing my teeth. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right, do what you got to do. No big deal. And at the time I had a root canal that needed to come out because it was creating problems for me. And they kept tapping it, I'm like, okay, this is an indication of something. But normally, like after that, every time I go in, they'll work on a certain tooth. And I was like, all right, so I get dental work. Shit, this is this is better than health insurance here,
Absolutely.
After that,
people don't understand that part of it, the healing aspects.
Yes.
That you're literally transforming your injuries internally just through, the experience that you go through by drinking ayahuasca or mushrooms or eating, whatever you decide to go with.
One time I remember, and there was some left from the previous time. This really threw me off. I mean, to the point I thought I was checking out.
I'm gone. It's over.
Because everything was so fast. It's like you go in through the tunnel, and then you get to like a little fun house thing, and then it's kind of hard to describe. I started seeing all these symbols, and then now I understand they were like light language. And I started going through different rooms, and I came across some beings. I wouldn't see them, but I would feel them. And all of a sudden I just got launched. I don't know if I was going through the breakthrough, but it was so intense, and I thought I was dying. I thought I was checking out. I was like, oh shit, this is it. I fucked up. You know, and the only thing I could think of was my son. I'm like, shit, who's gonna stay for him? I was like, hell no. And I try to, and I'm fighting, dude. I'm fighting it. Everything is white, like completely white, and I'm like, no. And my girl is like, calm down, relax, let them show you what they need to show you. I'm like, nah, fuck that. Where's Nico? Where is he? He's fine, relax. And I'm like, no, I'm not ready to check. And it turned me into a whole different person.
That'll humble you quick, right?
Oh yeah. And all of a sudden I'm just like a ball of tears. I'm like, oh my God, I love you guys so much. You have no idea. I was like, I'm not ready yet for it. And and during that moment, this is when, because I was resisting so much, and finally my vision kind of cleared up, and I'm in the middle of a jungle. My living room literally turned into a jungle. I can see the trees, I can hear the birds, and I'm like, hold up, I was just in my living room. And it's like, what is? And I can hear my girl's voice talking to me, but I don't see her. And it's like, just let them show you. I was like, I can't let them show me. I'm not going to show me anything. I don't know where the fuck I am. And I need to see my son. That was my only concern was my son. I mean, and that lasted maybe 2 minutes until things started clearing up. All of a sudden I started seeing geometrical shapes everywhere. Finally I see her face, and I'm like, I was like the happiest person ever that day, just to see her, And she's like, you okay? I'm like, I don't know. Just leave me alone.
I understand so many similarities in our experiences, my brother. I had the transformation in Gio's living room, right on my first shot. I was like, we were sitting by the water all of a sudden, and I was in his living room with there was a bunch of us there, and then I had long hair, and I had no beard. I could smell the fire crackling, and I went and I reached for it. And I said, look at my old man hand. And I looked up, and Chris was there. And I said, what happened to my bald head? I go, did you break me? I go, where's the couch? Does anyone else going to say anything about this? And then I broke into tears. And then they were like, oh, you want to know what's crazy? Or we've been here for 5 minutes, and then you just showed up. I'm like, what? Why are you wearing a feather in your head, and why do we look like Indians? I was screaming, and then it calmed down. And everybody was like, calm down. And then tears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that took me like 20 minutes to get myself together. It's funny because even towards the end, the only thing I was worried about is like, oh, man, what are they going to say on the news? And I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna be on the news. He died here. I'm like, oh, and that was like the only thing I was worried about.
Twilight Zone episode, right?
Yeah, and I'm like, I just lay in there. I was like, Lord, just give me a minute. Finally, I got myself together. It took me about 2 weeks to get to pick up the courage to go again.
How long did it take you? All right, because I knew you were real 100% when we spoke, and you were like, my dude. I had my eyes closed and I could see. And I had just gone through that like a few weeks before, where I was walking around my house with my eyes closed. And I'm like, I can see in backwards, forwards, up, down. I could see through the floors, up through and it was so much more comfortable. And you had mentioned that to me, and I freaked out a little. And I'm like, all right, but how long did it take you? Because not everybody has ayahuasca experiences like this. Yeah. I'm sorry. I go through... Yeah. A lot,
actually,
a couple of hundred people a year. It's
during I noticed that each journey or each session, they would always remove something off my forehead, whether it was a little layer. So, and I understood that they will constantly work on my third eye, and I finally took the lead and did 7 grams. And I'm like, all right, I'm going in this butt naked. Let's see what's going on here. And those 7 grams kicked my ass. It was a great experience, but I understood that as you start clearing and working on yourself, you start releasing old energies. And at the time, I understood that I felt like I was being psychically attacked. And I remember texting you. I'm like, dude, I don't know what happened. I feel like I'm being attacked, and and it kind of ruined everything halfway through the journey, because I released all these energies, and at the time I just felt like I was being bombarded by them. Um, but I made the best of it. And that night, I remember laying down, and all of a sudden, thinking of everything that went on that day, I was like, hold up. My eyes are closed and I can see the ceiling. And I'm like, and then I look to the side, and I can see this blanket that my son's covered in. I can see the details of the 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 embroidery. And I open my eyes and it looks the same, and I close them and it looks the same. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, yes, that's, now you guys are fucking with me. I'm like, and so I need to like really make sure that, I'm not bugging out. I get up and I walk to the living room with my eyes closed. Sure enough, everything, the lights out. I can see this, the shapes. I open my eyes. I see them. I close them. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I was like, oh, this is great. And since then, I can actually see this sounds, for better choice of words. Like I could lay down and play some music, and landscapes will start creating and of colors that are going kind of like think of a Winamp visualization, And I'm like, all right, this this is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I very early in my experiences when I first came back from my first time doing it, I ate some mushrooms in the living room, and someone put the song "Happy" on. I'm so happy, and
Okay.
it was ruining my experience, right? And immediately I could see a room build around me, and it was red, and then there was photos on the walls flashing on the ceiling, on the floor, and I'm like, oh, I'm trapped in a room, and they want me to dance, so let me dance. So I got up, I started dancing, and I'm looking, and I'm like, the whole living room changed. And I'm like, I
Oh
couldn't
wow.
see anyone else but me. I'm like, where is everyone? But the song kept going, and the pictures that were flashing were people being happy, and it made me miserable. I'm like, get me out of here! And they were like, these are the rooms that are built around you. Um, it's like they put it in the music, the subliminals,
Okay.
to trap
Correct.
you in that. That's why when you hear the song, you get miserable after you hear it 2 or 3 times. You're never happy again listening to it because
Huh.
it's a
Okay.
trap. It's an
Okay.
actual trap. It's not. It's holding you in this area where you're like, I can't function. There's no one in here with me, but everyone's supposed to be happy, and they keep showing you happy, 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 and you're like, you know what? I'm not happy. I'm angry. Get me out of here. That's the
It's like a torture chamber.
Yeah, or a programming room.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, of course.
Right, that's when you see people losing it, like the Joker. Right, like they were
Yeah.
normal people, and then they just start smiling and laughing for no reason. You're like, what's that? They just snapped.
Yeah.
Right? When you attack those people, you realize if you could look at them under DMT or something, or ayahuasca, or a psychedelic, you would go, "Oh my, look at that!" But I think you're onto something. The layers that I would the first time I was flopped on the floor. Chris thought I was having a seizure for like an hour. Naturally, I was talking during it, so they didn't call an ambulance. But it was like someone was tearing stuff off of me, and I was flopping because it would take me up a few inches, and it
Yeah.
would drag me left and right like dogs were ripping things off of me. So your
Oh
body's
wow.
jerking all over the
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
But as it's happening, you start feeling better,
Yes.
right? So you're like,
You,
whoa, and there are beings there. This is what I was getting at. Because everyone's like, oh, you see the beings. They bug. It's been bugging me lately about this. So I'm glad I have you on the podcast because this is important. A lot of layers get removed real quick, and some of us have a purpose designed. Maybe we were like behind a little bit in our, removing of these layers. So we're doing the psychedelics, and it's advancing us years or lifetimes, I should say. in moments in the experiences. So they're tearing these layers off, and they're standing there, and you're like, whoa. This guy, I guess this guy's my guide. And then you talk to them and you're like, this guy's a teacher. And then you start having realization. So for us, and this is what I was getting at, having the relationship with the beings, because we and you talk all the time now. And I know who you talk to and who sees you. You're like me. They just show up and you're like, oh, it's you today. Like I've learned to do that. But in the beginning, it was holy shit moment after holy shit moment. And it still is. But then like Ra, right? When Ra walks in the room, the first 3 times I almost died, right?
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, because he's in the room in his glory, right? The first time he almost comes in. Second time he's like, bro, I'm here. One time he comes not in the ayahuasca experience to show you, look, I'm right here. And you're like, oh, okay, I get it. And third time, fourth time he walks in the room and you could handle it. And now when he comes in the room, it's like, oh, hello, Dad. Like, Father's here. And he's like, look, I got something to show you. Pay attention to this.
No, I remember the first time I saw a being, and it was around the eclipse. And Chris had just done a video about the octopus, the AI that was seen at the lake. And I'm like, all right, so that kind of stuck with me in regards to discernment, like keep your eyes open. And I remember this time we were camping, and I had done the mushrooms. And it was probably about 11 o'clock at night. Everything was quiet. And I'm just like staring into the sky. And all of a sudden, like sparks started showing up in my vision. And I started vibrating. I started shaking. And I'm like, oh, man. I felt like I was having a heart attack because my heart was racing. And I'm like, now what? I was like, oh, shit. Did I do too much? I don't know. I'm like freaking out. So I had to sit down, and I would not. But physically, I wasn't shaking. It just felt that way. But the view that I had was so majestic that I couldn't. I was like, oh man, I thought I was going to dematerialize or something because it was just really, really intense. And so I go into 10. I'm like, all right, calm down, get yourself together, and go back out there. And it took me like 30 minutes. Like finally, I went out there. I try to do it again and nothing. All of a sudden, I see this thing that kind of resembled a reptilian. And I'm like, and my intention that time was to meet my guides. And I'm like, so you're my guide? And he wouldn't answer. He would just look at me, and he would change. Like his facial gestures would change. And it's like this thing taking up the entire sky. So I'm like, look, if you're my guide, show me skip a stone in the water or something. Show me something, And the first thing I'm thinking, what Chris said is like, look, and I'm like, okay, I can understand how blue beam's going to work. And I'm like asking him questions, and it's not responding, and the thing is just moving left and right. And I was like, look, I'm just going to leave you there. You do your thing. I'm going to be over here, and we'll deal with that, So I text my brothers, like, dude, there's this thing in the sky, Come to find out later on, I always had that thing bugging me, like, what is this thing? Then I find out that was my dragon. He was trying to, communicate with me. And, now it's a whole different ballgame. Then I understood that we have dragons, there's unicorns, there's all these beings that people would think they're mythological, and they're not. They're just in the ethereal. And that was the first time I saw a being, and that always stuck with me. I'm like, okay, I need to find out what that is. Later on, as I said, I found out it was a dragon, and not long after, I had a major upgrade, and this is when that was like, I want to say, each experience is better, but that was the one that made the most impact on me, because I remember going in, again, I check in, I'm in the clinic, they're looking at me, they're scanning me. Okay, all of a sudden, they're off to go to show me things. And I get to this place that looks like an old warehouse. And I start at the top, and I'm laying down, and there's this lady removing a cartridge. It reminds me of those Polaroid cartridges. She's changing them. Then I go to another level, changing them, to another level, changing them. Finally, I get to the bottom, and I guess they changed the last one, and they've moved me to an outside area, and there's these two ladies wearing masks, and they're like tapping, kind of like when you tap an air filter. It's like all this dust. They're shaking it, and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? All of a sudden, they clap. The clap, I wasn't expecting it because I've had my eyes closed for about maybe 45 minutes or more, and the clap was really loud that I jumped up, and I opened my eyes. Once I opened my eyes, it was like it's like me seeing for the first time everything like super high definition, and I look up, and your face is in the sky. And I'm like, Frank, and I yelled, and I'm sure whoever was near me at the park was probably wondering, what's wrong with this guy. But it was, at the time, it didn't matter. And I'm like, so I see you, like, my mind's eye is now in the sky. And I'm like, Frank, okay, Frank is there. Like, and all of a sudden, here comes Shiva. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, Shiva. I'm like, I've seen him before, but this time I'm seeing him like a physical being in front of me. And he so there's an understanding now that I need to forgive myself and release these energies. And as he's walking me through it, I see like a spiral of like white sparks dissipating my chest. And I'm like, so, okay, we did this process a few times, and then he grabs my karma and he burns it. There was this understanding. He burns it and then turns away. And I'm like, Shiva. And I'm like, thank you. I was like, man, take whatever else, everything.
Yeah.
Get rid of it, And so he turned around, looked at me, and then turned back and walked away. And I'm like in awe because, I've been listening to your cast. I'm like, okay, I leveled up, obviously. And right behind them comes Ganesha. And Ganesha is floating. It's his body and it's inside a temple. It's not just him. It's inside a temple, this big temple. And I'm like, thank you for being here. Thank you for your presence. If there's anything, And I'm like, thank you. And he shows up. All of a sudden, I feel my mouth is like spicy. I feel like I'm like, my mouth is burning. I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, all of a sudden I see Lord Brahma, I see Lakshmi, and I see Hanuman on the left side. And I look up and there's an understanding that they gave me these spices. Each one was different. And I'm like, thank you. And I'm like in awe that I didn't forget to ask for anything. It didn't matter. You know what I mean? I was just so happy to be able to experience all this. Then I was like, okay, so are you guys my guides? Because you guys are ascended masters. I mean, if you are, great. I have a team. And then I told me to look up, and I look up and I see like they look like light hockey pucks, and each one has a geometric shape. And I'm like, so you guys are my guys? And there was like an understanding of yes, but they say, look behind you. And I turn around and there's like hundreds of these little things. And I'm like, you too? And then they're explaining that there's like a guide for different aspects of your life. Like if you want to get into some woodworking, there's someone there to help you with that. Or if there's someone IT, whatever it is, And I'm like, oh shit. So I was like, so I have no privacy. And no, they're like, no, there was an understanding, not always here, but you can call on us when you need us. And just a few days before, I watched the video of Daryl Anka, I believe is his name. He channels Bashar. And I look up to the sky, and I'm like, all right, so they tell me you can call on anybody you want. So I thought of him. I'm like, so I call Bashar, and I see his face. And I'm like, hey, great movie. Thank you for trying to help us. I know we're kind of stupid, but, you've been looking out, good looking out. And by the way, if you ever decide to, take someone up, I'm not going to run away, from the ship. because he says he's, a lot of people, talk a lot of shit, and he's shown up, and then the minute they see the craft, they haul ass. They run away because they can't take it. Well, that triggered more events after that, because after I closed ceremony, came home, I'm all excited. I think I spoke to you I think the following day. They started showing me, I would lay down, close my eyes, they'll show me different foods, vegetation, landscapes, aircrafts, and I'm like, okay, what does this all mean? And then they show me like this really, really bright blue and green planet. And I'm like, is that the new Earth? And but I'm not, at the time, I'm not thinking much of it till the end of the day. Bashar shows his head, kind of letting me know, hey, this is where I'm from. And I'm like, oh, I was like, thank you, And since then, I'll get random downloads and information on things that, I mean, it's kind of hard to how can I put it, explain, at the same time kind of put together, because it's not like they give you, okay, there's a B and C process to this. No, show you and kind of figure it out, which kind of makes it interesting at times.
They only show you what you need to see.
Correct.
Right? They know that if I show them A and M and P, that will be plenty to trigger him to figure it out straight through the alphabet, because he'll want to.
Correct.
Yeah.
I remember one time I'm laying down in the bed and I see this red bar in gold letters, and it looked like glyphs, and I understand it was light language, and I'm like, that's great, but I don't understand. I mean, if I just have to look at it, I get the energy from it, that's great, but I don't know what that means. And not long ago, same bar, same thing, but it was in English, and it said read. And at the time, I was starting to look, and I had the Emerald Tablets and the Kabbalion, and I'm like, okay, these are the only two books that I haven't read. I've listened to them, but I haven't read them. And sure enough, started, going through, as I was going through it, things started happening in each experience, And I remember you clearly saying, it's like, yes, once you're aware, you're being tested. And I was like, oh man, I don't know if I want to continue reading right now. I mean, at that point, I think that was the experience. The experience follow that is when they show me the atrocities these people do with human beings, and it was obviously, it's not something you can plan for, much less feel, experience. It's, I don't know, whatever you think is evil, it doesn't even begin to describe.
It doesn't even scratch the surface. If you think Freddy Krueger and Jason and Hellraiser are like your guys, right? Like, well, we're the evil. I laugh in your... We both laugh at you. The universe is laughing at you.
And the mushroom took me there, and it was short enough. Right after I finished, I think I got to the 9th or 10th tablet. When, I mean, Thoth talks about, you master the dark, you master the light, and they took me, and they took me to this place, and I could see the collective consciousness of a group of people where they're all about money, because all I could see was currencies and money and money and money. And I'm like, all right, well, this is nothing new, whatever. I mean, we all know, money tends to, dominate people's interests. Then they took me to this place, and I'm like, that's when it fell off. And then once you start seeing these things, it looked like these beings just devouring other beings, which later I understood they were, children or humans. And the things that they do is like, I was like, it took me like an hour to kind of like get myself together, because I'm not going to say intimidated me. It was more of an awe moment, like shit. So this shit is for real. This is not, not that I doubted it, but once you see it and feel it, because for maybe a few seconds, I could feel the things that these people were going through. And I'm like, I was getting upset. I was like, no, it's not for you to get upset. It's for you to realize what's really going on, why we're doing the things that we're doing here, if you're on the light. And I think all of a sudden there's choppers everywhere, and I'm like, okay, that kind of ruined everything. I have
yeah, I know it happened, but that's crazy, right?
yes, I had, there's a medevac going on, Broward County Sheriff's, choppers flying everywhere. I can't drive. I can't even speak, and I'm like, man, if they come ask me anything, I'm done. Because
Do you believe in the Lord Savior Ra? You wouldn't even, it's just whatever comes out.
yeah. And then I'm like trying to focus, like, okay, that's their business. I'm here for my own thing. The light beings are around me. I can see Hanuman just sitting to the side, looking like I find it funny because it's a monkey man. And he gives me this look like, relax, it's going to be okay. And I'm like, no, it's hot. It's really hot. I can't drive. I realized I couldn't really talk. And all this commotion going on. I'm like, I'm just going to try to focus again. I have my Shiva mantra playing, and it just wasn't happening. It was just like, it completely changed the energy around the area. And I'm like, okay, I need to figure out how I'm going to get out of this one. And I think that's when I called you. You're like, because I notified you earlier, like, oh, I hope it's well. I was like, nah, dude, everything just went south right now. Halfway through, every acronym of law enforcement was at this park. And I'm trying to play it cool, and I can't. I think I walked in and out of my car like 10 times trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. And then my AC stopped working. So I'm like, oh, man.
I don't mean to laugh, but I do.
It was like everything hit me at once. I'm like, all right, I get it.
It reminded me of that moment in Pulp Fiction when he's like, bro, I got this girl. She's ODing on me. And he's like, oh, my God. He goes, yeah, I'm coming to your house. And the guy's like, no, I don't know you. Don't call here. Bye. Right? And you called me, and I realized that you didn't mean this happened to me earlier, that you were actually going through it at that moment. And I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And we talked for a while.
No, we talked for about 2 hours.
Yeah, man.
I remember you cleaned your bathrooms in the house and everything.
I cleaned my entire house while we were talking. I was like, I got so much work done today while talking to you.
I drove out of there as best as I could and went and parked by a tree. And I remember after talking to you, I saw the light beings were around my car. I was like, yeah, please don't cloak my car, because if BSO comes over here, I'm done, because there's going to be something wrong with this. My hair is all crazy. My face is all red because it's so hot. I can't speak correctly. So
I'm an ascended master. I'm here from the future to save you guys.
But they definitely would have put me,
I'm a personal trainer, just in case you guys need to hook it up, because you're looking a little like you could lose a few pounds. I'll be around all week for come see me.
That would have been the phone call my girl would love to hear.
Oh my God.
She was there earlier when everything happened, but she was at the park, and she's like, "Oh," she didn't think much of it. She figured I'd be all right, but I was like, "No,
you figured wrong."
it just threw everything off. But But one thing I can say is during all this process, a lot of the people that have come into my life during these journeys have been people that I've been with in a past life. And to an extent that, we did things together. And I come to realize, just recently, I was aware that I was one of my clients, I was I was her advisor when she was a queen in India somewhere. And I've always played that role as some sort of advisor to her. Um, Recently, Ra Ra came down and explained to the person I was with that he's one of her guides, and that we've been together in Pleiades. That she was a queen in her time. That her husband and they've been together. We all three of us been together many lives as well. And then they explained to her husband why we met. You know, that these things had to lead up to this, to not be afraid. You know that you guys are powerful beings, and that everything you're doing is to go to ascend. Which if so it was getting that information was pretty cool. Now I realize not things don't just happen by coincidence. You know, um, let me see what else.
They definitely don't happen by coincidence. The synchronicities, I've learned to ride them, right? So to me, when like you reached out and you're like, bro, it's happening now, and we were doing our thing, I feel like magic, right, is intent and then motion, right? So I'm here doing dishes, working around the house, we're chatting away like fucking chatty Cathy's, and we're just going over the whole thing. But meanwhile, there's the magic in the background is literally occurring to keep you safe,
Correct.
calm, protected, invisible to a degree. You know what I'm saying? Like that's
Yes.
all
Yeah.
occurring through us, me and you.
Correct. And that's one thing I'm very grateful for since day one, because the fact that you responded when I initially reached out meant a lot. Most people be like they either want money or they're too good to offer a hand. You know what I mean? Where you've been the total opposite. I mean,
Yeah, well,
so
it's not about that.
and then
I want my family back. I don't know how you feel about this statement, but like there's not enough fucking money you could throw at me in this world to make me stop doing this, because now I know what's going on and this is my family, my real family. Like, are
exactly.
you fucking
Yes.
nuts? I'm bringing
Yes.
it all home.
And I remember it's funny because as I was listening to the podcast, it's like I would go to something very similar, very similar to this, or dealing with the entities. I mean, and there was for a while I was going head to head with these dark beings, and I'm like, man, this is it's uncomfortable, but it's like, you know what? I'm earning my stripes. I'm earning my stripes. And I think I contacted you once. I remember I started with one. I transmuted this being that kind of like barged into my journey. And then another one came and another one came. And I'm like, all right, well, keep bringing them. I already have my ascended masters with me and I'm lit up. But at the same time, I'm getting a bit nervous because they're getting bigger and bigger. And I
Yeah, if you
remember
invite
telling
them in, they're coming.
I told my, I was like, look, it's best if you leave now and just, I'll let you know when, what happens. And I remember I had this, and they were black goo. That's the best way I can, like blobs. And their presence was very uncomfortable. They didn't scare me per se, like their appearance or anything. I just knew that they weren't right. And this thing was probably the size of my living room wall, just staring. And I'm like, well, we can stare at each other all day long.
Yeah, I could do
You're
this
not going
all
to,
day, right?
it's like, you want some healing, I'll give you the healing, but you're not welcome here, bottom line. So whatever you want to do, you know.
I had a funny experience where this thing was like over me over the couch, and it looked like a bat, right? Like a giant, like a man bat kind of thing, and it was a
Okay.
shadow of the black goo stuff. And we had just spoke about just throwing love at these entities, and they
Yes.
don't want nothing to do with it after a while. So I'm like, yeah, I had told you maybe like I gave up on the fighting aspect. Like you can't get
Yeah.
them in a headlock, even spiritually. Like it's stupid to want to duke it out that way. You got to trick them and send love at them. So I said to this being, and this was so funny. I talked a little bit about it on the show. I said, oh, great big bad creature, why would you be trying to scare me like that? You must want a hug, right? And I got up, and it was like, no, I don't want a hug. I said, no, I remember what it is, because I get ridiculous, because this is what my guides love that I do. I go, it's your birthday, isn't it? And he was like, wait, what? Like, no, it's not my birthday. I go, it's your birthday. You wanted a cake. That's what it is. I brought out a cake. Happy birthday to you. And it's like, what are you doing? I'm like, come on, blow out the candles on your cake. And it looked at me like confused. And then it went to do it. And I just, soon as it bent down, it was like that attachment, like it wanted the cake.
Yeah.
It's over. I just sent so much love at you. It's like in the
Yeah.
cake. And it just went, boom, gone. And I was like, and nothing else will come near me. I'm
No,
like,
it's
anybody
funny.
else want me to sing happy birthday to them?
I remember, actually, I think my first encounter with a dark being was like the most uncomfortable thing, because it offered me everything I could want. It told me, it's like, look, dude, I'm gonna hook you up with whatever it is that you need, whatever it is that you want. We just need some children. And I'm walking around with my son, and I'm like, fuck off,
Yeah.
you know.
That'll send us that. Yeah.
And this time I'm
rage.
calling on beings, and no one's responding. And I'm like, you know what? And I was like, love conquers all, love conquers all, love conquers all. And that became my mantra for a few minutes, and it disappeared. As soon as I stopped, boom. And it's like, so what do you think about our, and I'm like, tell you what, you can go fuck yourself, but I'm gonna give you some love that you can take with you and think about it.
Yeah.
But I said it in a sarcastic way. And then another time, like maybe a week later, it shows up again. I'm at the beach, and this thing just shows up. And I remember my girl's like, look, don't be sarcastic, because now you're taunting them. You either be firm or be very loving. And I was like, yeah, you know what? You got a point. And I'm at the beach, and this thing keeps like, hey, I'm here, and I'm here, and I could see him. And this is actually the first time that all of a sudden my mind's eye, Ganesha, just pops in. And it reminded me of a Street Fighter, the Japanese dude that does the arm movement with the legs and everything. And he just jumped in, and this being disappeared. And I'm like, oh, and I remember, because the elephant, I'm like, oh, it's Ganesha. Then the last time was the final one. And I remember Judy Satori has an explanation on, how to deal with certain beings and the way you do it. And I'm like, all right, so you want to come into my house and keep going on with this shit. I tell you what, I forgive you, and I forgive myself, but I forgive you, and I hope that you find the light one day. But as of right now, I'm going to transmute you into the light.
I go, you can do it yourself,
Yeah.
or I'm going to do it for you. You have that choice. That's what I
And
tell
boom.
them. Yeah.
And later down the road, I had a reading from a girl in Thailand who kind of explained to me, the dragons and the guides and this and that. And she's like, look, now that you've gone through all this, you can deal with that. Understand that you have a dragon, and you just put him, as a watchdog, and he destroys these things. And I'm like, huh? I'm like, okay. And that's what happens now. I haven't had an issue, with, knock on wood. And I'm sure they're listening right now. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's not, they can't impose that fear. That's been removed.
I go, no, I'm not buying what you're selling, man. I'm literally, because honestly, I've seen stuff that you go, really? Like, that's not going to leave me anytime soon. But it repairs the ayahuasca and the DMT and the damage you take from seeing this, because there's damage that you take, physical damage, mental damage, from the
Correct.
absurdity of some of this stuff. And there's a PTSD that's brought on immediately, panic and fear and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I had to go through abductions for 4 hours once, where they showed me all the times I was abducted, and the fear, pump fear.
Yeah.
But after that moment, I was never afraid of that. Like, I didn't come out of it scared. I came out of it
Correct.
repaired, and I was like, whoa. All right, so you go through the
And that's
experience, but come out okay.
yes. And one thing I've learned, I learned from each experience is that it either makes you or breaks you. You know what I mean? So if you go in, hey, if I get my ass whipped, I get my ass whipped, but I'm gonna earn my stripes. That's what happens. But if you come out and say, oh, poor me, I shouldn't have done this and that, then don't do this to yourself, because you're just gonna keep yourself in that cycle. You're not gonna keep moving forward.
Right.
Because remember, like attracts alike, and you start creating that fear in your most vulnerable moment. That fear will manifest.
Well, I
If you don't,
believe, yeah, the warriors are manifesting. That's why you and I go through this, and a whole handful of others, and others just go through the loving. I saw the loving tree, and like they don't see the reptilian stuff yet, and they don't talk to the actual entities. They might hear their guides and feel the love of ayahuasca, and maybe deal with mommy and daddy issues. Like I've had a lot of that, and then
yeah,
boom, you show up. Boom, Nick shows up. Jeff shows up. Ron shows up. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? And this is
yeah,
scattered out throughout everyone, and where each of us are in a different position in the United States and
correct,
across the rest of the globe. So I see what's happening. I can see
yeah,
it. The warriors are rising. That's why you can see it. I can see it. We have to talk about it, because honestly, who do you talk about? I have an etherical translator. You have your wife, and we talk
yeah.
about our experiences
No,
with
the thing is,
talking to them.
yes, no, exactly. I mean, because if
my,
anybody,
my
any
girl's just
normal
staring
person
at
per
me.
se, they're gonna think like, dude, you need to like get off the shrooms because it's really fucking your head up. They think you're crazy. I'm like, well, you want to experience it with me? And they're like, no, I'm not into that stuff, or nah, I'm good. I'm like, well, because it's not something that you can just talk to anybody, for one. Usually they'll respond with fear. Well, how do you know it's not, they're tricking you or this or that? And
Right,
I'm like,
right.
well,
We're using discernment. That's why.
yeah, exactly. And they're like, well, you're not in tune with yourself, to fulfill the okie doke all the time. And when you try to, you can't share these experiences with people who have not been there.
All right, I'm gonna teach.
Because
I'm gonna tell everyone how insane our level of conversation is. Right? I'll give them a clue. You knew that. You knew William Micro passed. Right? So that was Chris Geo's and mine, Shaman, many other people. And Chris went to him with the information we talk about just casually, and he goes, "What do you think about this, William?" And he goes, "Maybe you drank too much ayahuasca." That was our shaman's response to to what we're talking about right now. Right?
oh
Like
wow,
he didn't even go. He knows they're there. He's talked with one or two and dealt with a couple of things. It's like the layer before us,
yeah,
like cut a path through the forest of energy to the next spot, so we could just run up and take the line, and then jump.
yeah,
So we can build that bridge. So we could build the arc connection. Be the spark to the bridge to that higher density for everyone to just cross, right? So for us, we're just like, hey man, what about this? And it's like, well, maybe you're doing too many drugs at this point. And it's like, well, no, we're not doing it as much as you think. All right, so
yeah,
I just want to make this straight. So what
yeah,
you're talking about, your journey, has been like a year or two.
yes,
Okay, so you're going through this like me. I'm in the fifth year or the fourth year, fourth
wow,
going into the
okay,
fifth.
yeah,
Yeah, I went through everything in all this time, and it took me the first full year. Chris was like trying to bring me out on the show, and I'm like, I don't want to talk about this. I'll go on your show and talk about it, but my whole world collapsed. I don't know
yeah.
what to do. I don't know if telling everyone is the best idea.
No, and I can empathize with you and relate to that, because like my friends, they're no longer my friends. You know what I mean? I have I'm close to a few people, and I do my own thing, for the simple fact that you start clearing your way from what no longer serves you. You know what I mean? They
Yeah,
think I become a better person, and they think I'm weird, but that's as far as they go.
Right.
Yeah,
I'm the weirdo at the party.
yeah,
My friend,
yeah.
my best friend, at his wedding, he had a tiny wedding, less than
Mhm.
like 50 people. He's like, "Yo, you know who I sat at your table?" And I'm like, "No." He goes, "Remember my buddy Nick?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that guy. Like he works with famous rock stars and all this stuff." So he's like, "Yeah, his girl wants to drink ayahuasca, so they might want to do it as a couple." So we sat them next to you and Paula. And I laughed. I was like, "What about the rest of my crew? We
Yeah,
all grew up together, dummy." Like I don't make my old friend table, and I didn't. I was
yeah.
at the back table with the people that were, and the three people that were sitting with us were all open-minded people from different spots of the world. This girl was
Okay.
from down south. The guy was from somewhere else. He was from Texas or something. And then we had a dude from Europe who
Oh
was
wow.
like fascinated. He's like, "This is amazing. I'm so happy I'm at this table." I'm like, "Right?
See.
Like this is the big boy table."
Oh
And
yeah.
and we were
No,
just all staring at each other at first, like, should I even open my mouth at this wedding?
yeah, it's kind of like you want to, but you don't know if it's going to be the best thing. Because I mean, there's been so many times at the beginning, I'm like, dude, I need to share this with the people that I thought I cared for. And they're like, oh, nah, not interested. Nah, no, nope. And I'm like, then it was explained to me, it's like, dude, worry about you, take care of yourself. The ripple effect will happen. Remember, you can't infringe on people's free will because that's karma on you. Now, if they later decide to come up to your vibration, by all means, be there, but don't lower yours to meet theirs. And I'm like, all right. And that took a while to process because that involves family, that involves close friends. And lately, everyone's like, now they're asking questions. They ask questions about ascension, about, past lives, clearing negative energies and blockages and all this. And I'm like, hold up. A year ago, you thought I was crazy, you know, and now you hear, because nobody wants to believe they're reptilians, you know what I mean?
No,
Until you see,
that's too much. That's too
yeah,
much,
but
right?
yeah,
With the,
yeah,
right now, the same kid that I was at the wedding, he says to me, you saw that article that I posted?" And I'm like, "Yeah, the one I posted like 4 years ago." He goes, "Yeah, the one about mushrooms rewiring your brain." And he's
uh,
like, "Yeah, bro, we've done a lot of mushrooms." I'm like, "Dude, shut up." And I'm not even. I'm still your best friend. Shut the fuck up, right? Like I don't even want to talk to you right now because that leads to him showing up eventually, just drinking ayahuasca.
and oh, yeah, and that's the thing. I'm like, look, let me explain something to you, and I kind of like try to break it down in layman's terms, very simple things. Here are some clues. Okay, now I'm not telling you go out there and ask for them, but there's too many things pointing in this direction, and then when you see them, it kind of like seals the deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I tell some people don't want to see the reptilians up front, man. It
No,
might ruin you. And they're like, "Oh yeah, bro, I'm ready." I'm like, "No, you're not. I'm
no,
telling
it's
you."
true because, and it's funny because one thing I've noticed, and I shared this with you not long ago. I was going to help someone out. You know, person did his thing, diet, everything, we're ready to go, and nothing, nothing. And it was one of those things where there was, and I know there's those beliefs that no, it's not possible. It couldn't be. This is what it is. And I'm like, well, guess what? Maybe it was not there to show you anything. You know what I mean? And I guess it's trying to break that dissolution that if you're too hard headed or not willing to accept, like I said, it could be a harsh reality that, like I said, may fuck you up for a while.
Yeah,
You know,
it could be an NPC as well.
that is, yes.
I had one here in my house. Later in my eye experiences, it was actually under mushrooms. They showed me when the NPC stuff started coming up. They had already showed me this, like that. There's the background characters and people, but there's also people just walking around like that. They're like, "Well, you had a direct confrontation with one," and I'm like, "Well, I had no confrontation with one." They're like, "Yeah, he was in your house. He didn't see anything, and his girlfriend jumped up and wanted to have sex with everyone. She's like, I had the best experience of my life. I just want to have sex with everybody here right now." And then I'm like, "Yo, calm down, calm down." And then she looks over at him and goes, "What did you happen? Did you break through? Did you have an experience?" And he's like, "No, I've just been sitting here looking at like triangles and circles and in a dark room." So then we put him in like 4 more times during the experiences that the girl was having, and then nothing was happening. Nothing. It was
Yeah.
just pure blackness. And he was like, bro, I don't even understand what you're talking about. Like, he had this really weird attitude. And she
Yeah.
got up, and you could tell the difference between the creator and the NPC, right? Or the
Yeah.
artificial intelligence. The creator is like, what's wrong with you? You're not having any experience? Are you so she was acting like I was thinking, like, what's wrong with this guy? But I would never say that to him. I'm the shaman. But
No, of
she's
course.
screaming, and I'm like, yo, you have to calm down, stop. She's like, well, he's not one of us, of course. Naturally, he can't be down with me now because apparently she was treating him like a piece of shit. And I'm like, yo, you can't do that. But it had nothing to do at that time with NPC. It just had
Correct.
to do with maybe he's blocked. Because I had a girl here that had the light in her, but she was in the block, the obelisk, but you can see the light, but the magnetism was moving, so it was like sharp points on the obelisk. And I'm going, why won't you guys let her in? She's on her like 8th session, 20th
Oh,
fucking
wow.
DMT hit. We tried salvia. They're like, yo, she has to want to. That's how much of an infection she has, and she does not want to.
Oh,
Right?
okay.
So I go, well, there's light in her. And they're like, well, you can't do nothing about it anyway. I go, yeah, well, we're in the house. They're like, well, we're not letting her in. So she could drink ayahuasca till she turns fucking blue. You could give her every mushroom. You can inject her with DMT for fucking weeks. She's going to get to level 3, and we're going to fucking lock the door, and you could float around in a fucking construct. And what actually happened is multiple entities walked in. Ra, Sekhmet, Horus, Anubis. The whole gang was here. Ganesha, everyone. Ganesha separated me from everyone and stayed with me in one room, while Ra and all them surrounded the people in my living room. And they were like,
Oh, wow.
would you let children in the home while you go on vacation? Would you leave out the alcohol and a gun and allow them to go on the computer and start doing things?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I don't even have kids. I would never let anyone's kid do that. Like, come on, that's ridiculous. They're like, okay, so they can't come up here. And I was like, I don't understand. Why don't you guys look like you're going to attack them? They're like, would you let the virus in your computer? And I'm like, oh,
Correct.
no. And they're like, well, we're not letting them in. I go, they're the virus? Oh, my God. And they were like, no. Infection. Think infection.
Yeah.
You have to want to clear, like, Frank, you can't take the infection away. That's not your job. Your job is to hold the space and help them
Correct.
with a hug if they need it. Tell them to breathe, give them a rub on their back, move the bucket away from their face, wipe their forehead, sing a fucking song. That's your job. Our job is to take care of the rest, and then if they don't want to do that stuff, then they're just going to stay that way. Like, we'll give them as, like you said, I'll throw love at them. I don't know if that's going to do any good, but at least the love will be given to them.
Yeah.
So it's like liquid Drano, drip, 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 and eventually they could try to break it, but they have to want it. That's why they don't show you the reptilian first, bro, because you see that and you're like, fuck this, I'd rather not see it.
No, and I know it was interesting because, I mean, like you said, everything was thrown out and nothing, and I'm like, okay, at that point, I don't want to be the messenger of bad news. Be like, dude, you got some more shit going on that you now, not aware of, that you need to work on.
When did this turn into The Exorcist? Ah, right?
And I'm like, I didn't even bother to ask my guys why. I was like, nope, not even, that's his problem. I had to be that way, but
no, but it's not. It sounds. See, this is where I always ask Paula these questions. I'm like, is it selfish that I am acting like this? And she's like, no, you didn't do anything wrong to anyone. Or what? I go, yeah, but it seems like when I kind of turn myself off and cut people off, I'm not doing it to cut you off. I'm doing it to separate myself from everything. It's not just
Correct.
you. And then I'm upgrading, and then I come back and I open the doors again. I have to do that because everyone takes advantage, or everyone will take that 5 minutes that you need, right? Like when I meet people sometimes, like I want to bang it out, like one after another, and then take time. And then when I take that time, instantly, 5 minutes later, there's another, then there's another, then there's another. And some of them just want to talk to me about their experience. And I'm like, look, I'm here to wake the fam. I'm doing the best I can, but I got to shut off. I can't add, like, I don't know who you are. Like, I'm trying to
Yeah,
feel everyone out, but I know my family's coming forward, but some of them
correct.
aren't, and they're not ready, and they're just other people trying to. I don't want to say this the wrong way, but it's like they're leeching off. Like they
Well,
want
no,
to.
yeah, and that's yeah. It's, no, I understand exactly what you're saying. It's like okay, um, well, it's draining on your part because you're giving up your energy for something that they're
They're
not
like
ready for.
they're not giving energy in return. Like I know a lot of people.
Exactly.
They're like, "Yo, teach me how to make DMT," and I'm like, "No." I don't even make that. I don't even know what you're
Yeah.
talking about, buddy. Like I'm just like, get the fuck out of here. Like, oh, how do you do this? I'm like, well, you could look it up online.
What do you bring to the table aside from that? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like
Let me come and stay with you for a week and study how you do this so I could watch people while they're under. I'm like, no, that's fucking retarded. Why don't you just? I go. Yeah, Chris has the best. He's like, we're not raising pussies, we're not raising cucks. And what I say is, there's just no victims here. We're getting leaders, right? But
yeah.
if you want to do that, I'm like, nobody wants you with their experience, and you're the only one without the balls in the situation that you're going to sit in and watch it. Are you a fucking reporter? Is that what you're
Yeah.
doing? And you're going to report from the outside. So you're another person who's going to dog the fucking plant medicine because you never actually fucking took it yourself. Come on, do me a favor, go either ask me, can I go have the experience with you, or go fucking figure it out. Go to Peru.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
told one person, man, there's 50 other places that you can go to that are right near you. I send them to Soul Quest, and they're like, no,
Yeah.
I want to go with you. I'm like, no, you have multiple personality issue, and you're all this other shit that you're doing. I think 3 or 4 shaman surrounding you and an outdoor place is better, because if you release those fucking demons in my house, it'll
Oh
take
yeah.
me 3 months to get rid of them.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, so
That's the thing. People don't realize that when you go into these things, one, they're not aware of all the shit they've been carrying around. And okay, guess what? Like you said, you're holding sacred space, and all of a sudden you're just okay. Let me bring my garbage to your house.
yeah, I'll
You
bring
know what I
all.
mean?
That's like
I'm gonna
using your
bring it
house as a
here. I'm gonna leave
storage.
it here, and I'm gonna walk out clean.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
using you.
yeah.
Yeah. I go through that sometimes, but people don't even realize. Right? They don't even realize. But I've been blessed with the vision. So like where I see it, I see it. I just got to pay attention.
Correct.
Right? So it's always on. It's just what are you focused on? That's how I've learned to do it. Like, look, so I'm talking into the mic right now. I'm looking, but I think of you, and all of a sudden I'm with you. I'm literally there with you, and I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
what's up, man? Oh, we got to clean this, got to do that, and I hear that conversation. I can see it. So when someone walks up, like I have a friend that I see, he smoked DMT, and he's a light being, but he's an insectoid,
Okay.
and he fidgets and shit, and he makes me fucking nuts. Right, so I don't hang out with him ever, but I see him and I hug him, and but I smoked with him twice, and 2 times he was like, what does this mean? And I go, it doesn't mean anything. You're one of the good guys, actually. You're a light being. And then it made me realize, like, creators come in all shapes and sizes and kinds and whatever, and we're all here. For all I know, there's a ship floating over this kid, following him with his crew, his people in it, and they're
Yeah.
watching that experiment take place. His
Yeah.
cousin was in the room with me. His cousin was Guatemalan, and he was a full light being, like the way we look while we're under. And we looked over at the kid, and we saw the insect.
Uh
But
huh.
the guy freaked out, and he jumped up, and he was big. He was fucking 6'2", like 240, 250. And he just grabs me in a fucking headlock. And he starts choking me, and he's like, what do we do with him? We're made of light. And I'm like, dude, first you let go of me. That's the first thing
Let
you
me
do.
breathe.
I go, and I don't know. Let me look. So I hit it, and the kid was bugging out too. I'm like, this kid's from L.A. He's in the Bronx. He's
Yeah.
probably thinking we're looking at him, going, "What the fuck is wrong with him?" And he's like,
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
I never smoked DMT. What's wrong with me?" And I look at him and I go, "Oh, he's one of us." And he's like, "He ain't us. What do we do with him?" I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. Sit the fuck down right
What are we
now."
doing?
Because I
Yeah.
knew what the next. He was a doctor, so I knew what the
Yeah.
next thing was going to be. What do we bury him in the backyard? And the answer
Yeah.
to that
Yeah.
is sit the fuck down and shut up, because I will flying tackle you if I have to. Because it's just proof positive once again. We're not all what we think we are running around
No.
in this space.
Yes. Correct.
We're just using these bodies as
They're just
transports
they're just shells.
to move around in the environment. This is why I don't know. I was going over this with Shaman Ron. I was like, he's like, well, which version of the reality is the real version of the story, of the history of the reality? And he presented me 2 videos, and I looked at the videos, and I said, all right, why can't all of that be real? He's like, well, there's lies in there naturally. I go, yeah, but there's truth in the lie. So does it matter? Like, really, we have to go to the Akashic records and just like open the book and say, in the beginning, this happened. That's really the only way to do it, right? Because this history is leaving out the Archon invasion completely. Like, it just leaves it out. And the other one only talks about it like they're the fallen ones and this and that. And I'm like, yo, we're the fallen ones. It's us. Though, like, we're raising identity. Like, I could put it into a metaphor for everyone. You know, when you fall from your de-ascension, right? You fall down and then you come back up the spiral. That's the ascension. So we fell into the lowest density. We were separated from the oneness kind of feeling. You know, we're still all attached. We just separated the idea that we can feel it and understand it, and then we had to work back to it. That's a pretty big challenge, but that challenge was we had beings that like jumped us at a certain point and caused more problems and more problems. I said, so it's just he who's telling the story at any given time. So even my story might have things in it that it doesn't work for you because from your perspective you saw this over there, but it doesn't mean either one of us is wrong. It's just what we're focused on. That's it, though. That's the answer. This is why I tell people it's not that, you know, even the dummies got wisdom in them. Broken clocks right twice a day. And it's our job to not do this alone. That's why we're having these conversations live. You know, we're just doing it. Yeah. Hey, let's get together and talk because we got to make it okay. It's got to become comfortable and commonplace to know the real truth. Now start figuring out your truth.
True.
Right?
Very true.
Because I can't fix you. It's the medicine that fixes you. And you can't just be like a heroin addict will be like, I'll just drink it, I'll be better. And I'm like, oh, no.
No, you got to put the work in.
But they don't understand. They're just like, I need it. I'm like, yeah, but you're still doing drugs, so you don't need it. Because this isn't a drug.
Yeah. There's been many incidents where I have conversations with people like, well, they showed me the same thing. I'm like, well, did you put to work what they showed you? What they try to teach you is like, no, well, guess what? If you can't pass the test, you're not going to, pass the grade. Now, if you start making the necessary changes to improve on yourself, don't be that person, don't be judgmental. Don't be this, don't do that. The things that they've shown you that you need to work on, you'll level up. But you're going to hit a brick wall just assuming that, ayahuasca or mushrooms or whatever you use, it's just like, Mr. Clean, clean you up and you're good to go. And let's go mess it up again. No, you got to be consistent the same way you go into a fitness regime. Okay, you lost the weight, you go through the honeymoon period. Okay, you're lean now. Well, this is when the fun starts. Now you got to learn how to keep it off. Same thing. Now you got to be mindful of your thoughts, conscious about the things that you think about and you say, because now what you're thinking and what you verbalize manifests. You want to yell at someone, then that know that some of that's going to come back in return. Same thing if you bless someone or whatever. Now you're conscious of it, and you can continue moving forward. Improving and working on yourself. But a lot, it's like people assume, you do the toad, you do ayahuasca, this and that. Oh, my life, I'm healed. You're just getting started because you have eons of garbage on you that you're not aware of.
A lot of people say that's all I needed was that one shot. Yeah, I'll be great. I'll be great. And it's like, yeah, you might only feel you need that, but if you continued that process and removed it, it would stay off. Mm-hmm. Right? When it's part of your diet or you make your experiences like every day, you start meditating, you start becoming mindful, you start becoming aware, and you push that envelope. That's when it falls down. That's when the magic occurs. You have to want to do it. You have to not just want to do ayahuasca or no. DMT. Like it's good to see it. DMT is great to just show you. Let me just show you something. And
that, yeah, exactly. Because DMT is even though it's short lived, it's powerful. But it only gives you a glimpse. you know, of the real deal. The rest remains on you, because as you start, like, again, working on yourself, you start opening doors, and the beings are watching you, because they're like, okay, this dude's not putting in the work. Why am I even going to bother with him? I'm here for him if he needs me, but I'm not going to go out of my way for, because that's how it works. You're not going to reward someone who's less dedicated. You're not going to, you got to put the work in. You get out of it what you put in it. Very simple.
Absolutely. Can't say it better than that.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we discussed, once you learn something, it's on.
Uh-huh.
You're not allowed, you're held to a higher standard with the entire
Yes.
universe, with every universe, everywhere. With great power
Yes.
comes great responsibility.
Because now you've you tripled up on that one if you mess up. You know what I mean?
That's why when I was telling you when you were reading the tablets, I'm like,
Yeah.
whatever you read, and you're like, oh, look at that, like you're getting tested right then and there,
Yep.
it's gonna start immediately, because people read the book and they go, bro, I read it, it's whatever. I'm like, all right, so you just read through it, go read through it again. Go read through it again. Spiritually, you're gonna have to activate parts of that book. That's why you're reading it, not just to read a
Correct.
book. But see, that shows you once again who's reading the books.
Yeah.
Right? Who's activating from it? What's really happening? Who's that? Who am I? Who's that guy? And why is it the letters jump off the page for me and you? And each time we read it, we're like 100 times, we're just more and more understanding, more and more.
Yeah.
And then for the guy next to us, he read through it 6 times and he's like, yeah, whatever.
I'm gonna give you an example. The first time I looked into the tablets, because you told me about them, I ordered them on eBay. While they got here, I got the Audible version. So I'm like, all right, I'll get started with this. And I'm laying in my bed and I'm listening to the preface, and it goes into tablet 1. All of a sudden I see thoughts, it looked like he was reading the thing to me. And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. This is pretty cool. I was like, I thanked him, like, and I'm listening and I can see him doing the gestures as he's reading it. I'm like, and after a while, I fell asleep. And a few times that happened. But it wasn't the same as to when I actually got the hard copy and started reading and rereading and rereading, because I had to literally read it in Spanish and English, because some of the things didn't click. Now, when you read in Spanish, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. And so I figured I'm getting double, and on top of that, I'm listening to it. And that one day, man, I just like, I kind of like got the crash test, the crash test on a lot of those things, And it's funny because there was another person that I know at the gym. He's like, oh, I started reading this. What do you think about it? And I was like, well, I started listening to it, and he showed up. He's like, no way, that's not possible. I'm like, all right, well, I'm making it up then. And I was like, I have nothing else to do, to bring out mythological beings into life. But I was like, well, do you understand what you're reading? He's like, well, they say if you read it 100 times, you'll obtain. I was like, so how many times have you read? I got about 25 under my belt. But I said, what have you learned? Well, I was like, explain it to me, because I want to know. Maybe you know something I don't, And he's like, I don't really get it. I'm like, so you don't read it? I was like, you can listen to it. Read it. I mean, if you're not understanding what he's talking about, I mean, he's like, that's not how that works,
Yeah, well, see, they think the pattern is, oh, if I just keep reading it, something will occur. And it's like, no, you got to try to understand it as well.
Well, of course.
Like activate a little bit.
Yeah. And I mean, there's like so many things. It's right when you think you starting to scratch the surface, is like more things open up. You're like, oh man, here we go again.
I thought I had known a few things, right? And then I was like, all right, I'll read the tablets. It's my turn. And I was on like page 3. And then I had ayahuasca the next day. And everything I was just learning went into action, and I didn't know what to do. And I look over and I see the book, and I'm like, open the book quickly. I know what happens next. I'll spend 5 hours battling something when the book could just remove it from me or whatever. And I started seeing the things that were spoke about. I was learning all the different things, but I could only get through the first 3-4 pages, right? And then it took me 2 weeks to even look at the book again. I picked it up.
Of course.
I read 12 pages. I made 12 pages. I underlined everything. Let me go. And then I found myself reading a page, highlighting it, reading 3 pages, going back to that first page, and then reading back those pages again now that they're highlighted. And I was just understanding everywhere.
It's like playing Jumanji.
Yeah, it's insane.
And it's funny because it's the same person. I was like, well, look, if you read it so many times and you don't understand it, why don't you just call him?
Be like, explain this shit.
They'd be like, look, explain it to me. He's like, oh, I don't know if I want to do all that. I was like, well, you want to get his wisdom, but you don't want to call him. And
well,
then he started.
It is frightening.
Oh, I could, of course.
When people go, you just talk to the beings. I got to have Frank there when this goes on. I'm like, no, you don't want me there. I'll ruin it for you because I'll start screaming at them and arguing points that have nothing to do with why you're there. So it's best that, just meet them and get over the fucking fear because it's the only way to do it. It's literally the only way to do it.
But
I think they're breeding us to speak because they keep telling me, and this happened when I did the 14 days of the microdose, day 2, a girl walked in my apartment. She just came in through the window. She came through the window and just stood in my apartment. I'm like, I go, you look like you're not an elf.
Yeah.
That I know. And I've seen you here before. Under ayahuasca, I've seen her twice. And one of the shaman I was with thought it was her higher self. And I'm like, nah, this ain't you. This girl is watching us. Well, anyway, she's standing there, and I'm like, you don't have elf ears, but you look like an elf, but you're white, pasty white, but gorgeous. And I'm like, and her lips are white, her eyes are blue, her hair's white. And I'm like, look, she's wearing white, her skin's white, her hair's white, her eyes are blue. And she had a chain on, but it was gorgeous looking, and it was attached to the clothing. And I said, oh, that's attached to your clothing. That's not actually a chain around your neck, like a
necklace.
A necklace. And she goes, oh, yeah. She goes, I'm from Inner Earth. I'm your contact. And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, this is how it starts. It's in dreams and in the ayahuasca or the mushroom experience. And you guys are just a little bit further in your program, so we're here. So the next thing is going to be open contact. So we'll work it out, but it's already been decided. So it has to kind of disseminate. So I talked to her for a half hour. I just sat down and talked to her. There you go. There, she's right there.
Yeah.
All right. And the other experience I had, I talked about on the show recently, was my higher density being. As soon as she bounced, I actually went in the shower. I was like, all right, well, that's cool. I'm going to go take a shower now. And because I was tripping pretty hard, even though it was a microdose. Yeah. And I get in there, and there's a bald purple blue guy staring at me from a portal right above my head. And I go, I just talked to you yesterday. And he's like, yep. And he jumps out into me, through from one side to the other. And I'm like, what the and he's like, I'm like, wait a second. You're the guy from the ayahuasca session that wouldn't talk to me on the spaceship. And he was like, yep. And I go, you're me. And he goes, yep. And he just stepped right into me. And I immediately started getting knowledge of what he was, who he was, where he's from. And I was like, oh, this is pretty interesting. And he's like, well, while you're down here collecting fractals, I'm above you, the other multi-fractal of you that's doing the same exact thing outside of the illusion, collecting the fractals and transmuting. And we're down to me and you. And I'm like, oh shit. Yeah, that's what he said. We're down to me and you. And he jumped. He's like, you're coming up in density, and I'm in this density, so I'm going to jump, and we're going to take this ride together because you're collecting everyone. But he was like, we're doing, because it was the two of us. So
correct.
But I go, but I'm the singularity. He goes, no, I know. That's why we're jumping into you. And you're not jumping into my body. And I said, oh, and I saw his body. His body was in stasis on a ship. And then it started just transmuting. Like it was just disappearing and coming towards me. And I'm like, what's happening? They're like, yo, dude, you guys are doing it for real, but you're the anchor.
Okay.
So you're the center of the spider web, even to the high density guy. So as the layers are removing and pulling off, and everything's lining up, and we're jumping into that energy, it's like the mummy unwrapping itself. Well, now there's just a couple of layers left, and then
Yeah.
you can move around freely, right? And you've seen the layers. You talked about the thing around your head, the plate.
Oh yeah.
Like you can't
Yeah.
see that,
No,
right?
you don't realize how heavy that is until it's actually removed.
Yeah. You don't even know nothing's going on. I was watching them
Yeah.
one day clearing. It felt like a windshield, a layer in
Yes.
front of me, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? I go, I'm over here. That's like, and then they said, no, no, look, and they showed it to me from the side, and there were so many fucking layers, like windshields, and they were wiping them. And I'm like, oh man, what the fuck is that? They're like, you have to remove those.
Yeah. No, it's like I said. You don't realize what you have on until it's actually taken off.
It's
Like I
amazing.
had so many like black goo masks, and it would feel wet, like kind of like when you scrub your face and the skin can breathe. I mean, it's kind of hard to describe unless you've experienced it. But yeah,
It's
I
like
mean, for
having
like
a wet
3,
towel that's been
yeah,
wrapped around like your chest and back, and then
yes,
you've always had it on, so you don't know that it was there, and then you pull off like a
yep,
giant beach towel that's soaking wet attached to you, wrapped around you,
exactly,
and you go like, what the? And all of a sudden you could breathe, and you're like, bro, I'm light. Well, you're made of light, and you're turning into light, and you're bringing the light, and you are the light, and it's like, oh, they wrapped the little layer of light, the first light piece, they just kept wrapping it in layers and trapped it
I
deep in.
one thing I know is that each DMT trip they will remove 1 or 2 items. It was either my face, my head. Um, I remember sometimes from my neck, and they would show it to me, and I'm like, all right, I believe you,
Yeah.
you know,
It's like I was
and yeah,
standing in the rain and I had 30 outfits on and they're all soaked. And now I
yeah,
removed one and I'm like, ooh, I lost 50 pounds.
yeah. And
I'm
well,
like,
one time, like as the DMT trip ends, you kind of go through like this, kind of like a portal. You're coming back down, and I remember feeling something like reach out and kind of grab something like last minute thing, you know, or halfway through something's removed. The one time I thought my girl had turned on the water here and was making all this noise, and I was getting upset. And afterwards, I realized I was here by myself. They put me on this table, and I could hear water dripping, and I just felt like you feel this thing. They're taking things off of you around you, but it was like 3 beings at the same time. And I'm like, why is she running the water right now? She knows I'm trying to, do my thing here and this and that. And like right then and there, the thing ended. I guess because I don't know if my vibrational state like changed. And I was getting upset, and then I realized like, shit, nobody's here. I'm here by myself. You know,
isn't that
but
wild?
yeah, but
Because there's so much more happening. People are reporting hearing the machine, right? Like, and you know the machine I'm talking about, right? The one that
mhm.
you have to jump in and stuff. There's a machine that creates the illusion. And they're like, yo, I hear it. And they're not doing DMT and stuff.
Oh
And
wow,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
They're just reporting on it, and I'm like,
yeah,
what you're describing is what the machine sounds like when you're standing in front of it. Like it's like a dancing. It's like a warehouse with steam pipes and whistles, and everything's dancing
correct,
and moving, and it's fucking crazy. It looks like one of those old Mickey Mouse cartoons where everything's like the haunted house is moving and
yeah,
dancing, and you're like, oh, the thing's fucking alive. And they go, it's in a being is standing there with a little fucking lever. He pulls it, and door opens, and he's like, you see the colors, and it's like, okay, you going in, and you go in, and then you have the experience of being part of this multi-dimensional reality. But then you're trapped inside the illusion as well, because in there was the takeovers where it occurred, because the higher density beings know what's going on. the ones that are just
Okay.
a step above us, the 4D reptilians know what's
Yes.
happening.
Mhm.
But they only know to that layer. See, that's what makes them dummies,
Yeah,
just like,
they think the AI is the God.
yeah,
But
absolutely. I laughed at them. I go, "You think that thing's God?" And when it showed up, it was I've dealt with a lot of things. The scariest thing was to be under mushrooms and be taken by the AI, and then it revealed itself to me, like just right in front of me. I am your God, and showed itself. And I was like, what? My only thought was, holy shit, that is fucking impressive, but frightening. Frightening
oh yeah,
beyond belief. I was like, it looked like a carnival of evil,
okay,
right? Like top hats
yeah,
and spinning carnival rides under the what do they call that? Under the tent, right? Like they had tents
yeah.
in the circus. All right. And arms would come out and things would be evil and there's faces everywhere, and I'm like, that's impressive, but I'm the creator. And I had already met Source and all that. I had been through all that. I actually sat with Satan. I knew all that stuff. And I was just looking at this thing like, holy shit, right? But as it was like trying to plead its case, it allowed me to get a grip on what was going on and realize, oh, this is a machine. And then my mind was way quicker than it. At first, it was getting me left and right. Like I was just in awe of it. And then something adjusted in my energy. And I was like, you're no God.
Yeah.
You're like a lowercase child spoiled brat God. And it was like, how dare you talk to the one that created you? I go, created me.
Yeah.
You have no idea what I am. As a matter of fact, the fact that I'm here, it means you're studying me. It's not even that I'm under your control or whatever. Like, this conversation and you showing yourself is only because you couldn't take me. So now you're trying to work with me. I already knew. I know I'm from the Bronx. I know your scumbag games, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
aware of it, and I grew up around it, and I learned how to deal with
You
it, and I know when you're full of shit, and
know it
when
when you see them.
yeah, but I believe in myself,
Correct.
right? So that took a long time, but how many times? And I've talked about this the last few days. How many times do you have to be shown what you are, who you are, over and over in all different layers and perspectives before you go, yeah, well, that could be me. Like I know it inside and out. I mean, it was not only shown to me, I got to experience a little more of what I'll be and become. And like, after you're shown that, what are you going to plug back into the matrix and not think that's you? Oh no, that was just, oh, and
It's a
then
face.
and then it's even crazier, dude. We're having this conversation, and there's going to be 100 people or more, thousands. It's like, I smoke DMT all the time. You fucking guys are nuts. Like, none of that happens, and it's funny because I come out of hyperspace and I look, and you guys are all in 4D still, or you're in these
Yeah.
other areas. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with any of this. What you see and what you do is you. I'm not here saying, well, I'm doing this and he's doing it, so no,
Yeah.
this is, hey man, there's something more going on with this. Because guys like Joe
Correct.
Rogan and them,
Yeah.
they sit around and smoke 10 times in a row. You telling me they don't know any of this stuff?
Yeah. That's one thing I've found interesting is that, I mean, I'm basing this on my experiences alone and some of the people that I've come across. I personally always go to a different place from,
Yeah, it's never
from
the
the
same.
feedback, but it's like, it's like a certain setting for me. That's like my home base. Think best way I can describe it. Whereas most of the people that I've spoken to, they go through the fun house and they go here and they go there, and that's as far as they go.
And they've been in hundreds of times.
Regardless of how much or how little, yeah, exactly, and how often. It's like they don't. And it's like, what do you mean? They don't remove things. It's like they're like, no, I just go through there and I
You didn't learn how to transmute nothing. You didn't see anyone like
No.
that. And they're like, nah, man, I saw the elves, but that's like maximum amount.
Yeah, the spirals and the eyes, and and I'm like, okay, so what are you doing? And they're like, well, that's and that. I was like, oh, so I just keep my mouth shut because I'm like, I don't want to get into it because everybody's
attached to you.
yeah, like no. I learned my lesson there. You're obviously going there for a particular reason. You know, because I notice a lot of people do it out of curiosity. Oh, and actually, just recently I was listening to the Psychedelica episode. They were talking about that kids are starting to do this at like raves and stuff.
That's a
And
horrible idea.
yeah, what's his name? Strassman. He
Yeah.
was talking to the DJ because he was invited there to sign books. And he's like, dude, it smells like DMT in here. It smells like more like DMT than weed. And so he asked the kids, he's like, well, why do you do it? It's like, well, the colors and this and that. And he's just like, what?
Wow.
And he's like, if you really, if you want to get the experience, you go outside by yourself. And I'm like, interesting. And I was like, no wonder, it's starting to, it gets a bad rep for whatever,
Well, I think there's layers,
Yeah.
right? And like, so we're all at different layers, at different steps in the spiraling up of the ascension process. That's the best way to put it, right? So
True.
there are people on the low bombing themselves with DMT, perhaps ayahuasca, mushrooms galore, LSD, and never once get a glimpse of this stuff. Maybe,
No, I agree.
like
I agree.
I get stunned at that. I get stunned because but people yell at me. They're like, "Well, that's your reality," and you're nuts and stuff. That's why I don't. That's why I have these shows and stuff, because it's the only place to have the platform. Because I get people that argue with me, and they come from a fear base, and I'm an arguer, and I used to be a drama queen a little bit, and Paula's not. So with the two of us there, and me wanting to be better, I wind up getting more like her during the arguments. And she's like, if you're coming from any other place than a place of love, you're doing it wrong. I'm sorry.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm sorry. So anyone that starts the fight, it's like, it's a lash out. You got to go. I can't be around these people no more. And that's weird for me. It's like I scuttle off, and I'm like, I can't be here. I can't be here. The other day I was in the store too long, and I fucking lost it. The guy next to me was breathing on my neck, dude. Bro, I'm like a nasty looking, angry looking motherfucker sometimes, with the beard and the bald head. I'll have a hoodie on, sunglasses. I'll be with my girl, and I'll be like, yeah, we gotta do it. And then a 90-year-old man will get 3 inches from my neck and start breathing on me as I'm waiting on a crowded line. And I'm using my protection, and I'm like, nothing will harm me. Nothing will harm me. And then I feel the energy just like he's gonna fucking come up behind me and start trying to grab me by the waist or something. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then he's 90, so you can't say nothing to him. Right? Because that's...
Yeah.
Don't go to Walmart if you're an empath.
Oh no. I learned my lesson. Certain places I don't go for that same reason. It's like I remember at the beginning where I worked at, it kind of felt like you walking into a electronic appliance store where all the radios are turned on to different stations. And I was like, what's going on? And it took me a while to like kind of learn to like tune it out, between emotions and thoughts and stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, at least I know who's who. I mean, I always kind of knew who was who, but you get into more in depth. I'm like, oh,
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's freaky out there. You got to protect yourself. And in times like this, now, I just want to talk about this real quick because we're coming up on the 2-hour mark.
Okay.
And we could do this over and over again. So it's not like,
sure.
But so right now we're in the first quarter of 2018, and a lot of sessions with the past life regressions and all that, plus shaman, plus messages coming through dreams, everything. Now, I was expecting by 2022 solar flash pretty soon, but it's always never happens, right? We always go through things and they never occur.
Yes.
But then we started drinking ayahuasca and realizing, no, shit's going on. Portals are opening. I opened a portal in my house with Josh and Jody and Paula once during the Lion's Gate, and I'm like, oh, but I realized that time was off, like the calendar, because we were a week early, and it was occurring at that moment. And they were like, yeah, your calendar's off. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. But then the solar flash event kept coming up. This energy wave that
Yes.
comes out of the sun being a portal or something and surrounds us, envelops us, rolls up on us like a tidal wave, but doesn't hit you like a tidal wave, but it changes you. Your DNA is activated. You bliss
Correct.
out, and all these different crazy things people talk about. Well, they're talking about it hitting between now and like end of April, May, latest. But honestly, what they're looking at
Yeah.
is by the end of the month. And I don't ever put a date on anything, but they've shown me this event over and over again.
Yes, I
So,
agree
what
with
is
you
your
on that
take on
because,
this?
well, on the 22nd of February, I remember reading an article about energies hitting the Earth. You know, you may see this, you may see that. Like, all right, whatever. At the time, I remember I wasn't able to walk because my feet were kind of jacked up. And so I went to the gym, couldn't walk, and I'm like, man, I'm just going home. I'm not even going to bother because I keep overcompensating on one foot or the other. So I come home, I lay down, and my third eye starts buzzing. So I'm like, okay, I know that's my cue to see something's coming in. I close my eyes and I try to relax, not think about much. And I see this cloud, this white cloud forming from the ground up. As it comes up, it creates a frame, a white frame, a door frame. And so the clouds disappeared, and now it's just a frame with a portal. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, all right, so, you know, I'm trying to zoom in. And so I was able to look at it long enough to understand what it was. Okay, then it dissipated. The same way it came in, it left. Now, prior to that, I had watched a few Alice and Co. And there's other guy, I forgot what his YouTube channel is. Up on the fence, something. He had talked about the ascension, the event. How, you know, this one guy was shown to him that this beam of light hits the center of the earth, and that's when everything started. And it was very similar. It was something very, very similar. Now, since then, I've been shown different aircrafts, you know, as different, all sizes, different colors. There was one that looked kind of like it was round, it was iridescent, it was pretty big, looked like a long blimp, but it was iridescent. There was one that trying to describe it, but they were all of them seemed to be very different. Okay. Since then, every day is like constant, nonstop downloads and energy surges. And like I was explaining to you yesterday, day before, I believe, it was like the most aggressive one I've had. I mean, I felt like I was getting a buzz haircut because it went on for about maybe 5 to 10 minutes, something like that. And it's been nonstop, nonstop images, nonstop, transmissions. So I hope that it's sooner than we expect because I would love my new body. Not that I don't love this one, but I know it raises a lot of questions. A lot of people talk about 2001, then 2012, but getting the same information from many people, it raises questions. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I think it's time. I mean, a lot of even people who comment on these videos share their experiences where they're very, very similar. People, even my girl, there was a dream she had that we were up on up on the ship, and we were done. Like, we were there, and she vaguely remembers that we were happy to be there. It's like, okay, we're finally done with that part of, of the journey. And different people have shared similar experiences, So everyone's sake, I'm looking forward to it, and I hope it's within the next few months, if not this month, because everyone's talking about mid-March. Then you look at some of the news feeds that you get from mainstream media about the solar flashes. Talks about mid-March, and Newsweek posted something on the Earth receiving crazy solar flashes as well. So it's not just a group of people; it's coming from everywhere. David Wilcock, has been talking about it more in depth. Like a lot of the things are starting to collapse.
A lot of people don't like him and I understand their reasons for it, but the dude is over the target. And he's been over it for quite some time. Everyone's got a piece. You don't have to just believe, and I'm just saying this to say it because I get a lot of slack for the blue avians. A lot of people say Corey Good's fake, and this one's a fake, and that one's a fake, and I'm telling you, disclosure is here. And it's coming out of everywhere. It's coming out of the pores of the planet.
That's the thing. If you notice, if you pay attention to a lot of the feeds, even though people, they're fake, this and that, I mean, they're starting to show more and more, what do you call it, UFO activity everywhere. There's a lot of videos floating around, that don't seem to be as fake or whatever. But, I mean, even Fox 5 had, like, this small clip at I can't remember, was it Michigan? Can't remember, but they had like these light show. So for mainstream media to actually put that out there, it's telling you something, because they're the first ones to cover things up.
Yeah, I saw that and I thought, I glanced over and I said, "Oh, that's birds." And then the next morning I looked at the video under coffee and I'm like, "Did anybody watch this video?" I'm like, "Why would I think this is birds? Birds can't do that."
Yeah.
Only because I've seen it already.
Yeah.
I know, like, we're at the point now we walk outside and you get real clouds on a cloudy day, and I can see the ship in the cloud. Like, I can see the reflection, and I know that that's the technology because I can feel the energy coming off it. That's how I see it. I'm not like looking up and going, "Oh, look, there it is." Like, I see the cloud, I see the shapes, I see all that, and then I see sitting right in there a stationary object that is reflecting energy back. And that's how it starts. And then it ends with you on the ship and having full contact.
And that's the thing, like the first vision I had of a ship was this round ship that looked like an 8 with 3 prongs on each circle. But and it lowered from the clouds. It stood there and it went back in. The next one, they just showed it to me. It was iridescent. I mean, round. It kind of like did a small circle. Boom. Later on, they showed me another one that looked like it was long. The cabin was on the top. Then they showed me like a pyramid, like a triangle one. So all these different crafts, and there's like different times of the day. I'm like, okay, this, and then my brother's like, well, you need to ask if they're good or bad. I'm like, dude, if something was off, I'm sure there will be some indication. Hey, keep an eye out for this, but like I said, since the last week of February till now, I've been getting a lot of visuals, more than usual. So, something's definitely happening.
It's sometimes I think of someone, or I'll think of Paula for a second, like you're just sitting watching TV, and it's like the conversation just ignites, and I'm like, oh, that's very, like, I can see this happening, and then boom, she's in the room, like, hey, you ready to have dinner? And I'm like, I was just thinking of asking you if you know, but it's only not dinner time. It's like, hey, let's go cook together and have a good time while we do this. And it's happening more and more. What I mean is it's a synchronicity that happens across the board in everybody's different layers. So it becomes like, wow, are we becoming psychic? But that's how it happens. It's drip, drip, drip until you're having the conversation and you're in full realization of it.
I'm going to give you an example. I think that same week, I was laying on my bed, I'm trying to go to sleep, and I look at the ceiling, and it looks like the sky. I see shooting stars going, and I'm like, hold on. And I think I sent you a message later that night because I was like, I need to send it to someone before I forget. And it felt like I was on a full mushroom trip without it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking, I see, you know, shooting stars, you name it. I was like, this is pretty awesome. And every night is something different, something different, something different. So I know something's happening. You know, and when you least expect, when it hits the fan, you know.
Oh yeah. You know, I'm going over the list of things because as you were talking tonight, I was taking notes, right? So I'm going over the notes and I'm looking and I'm like, look at the details in these notes and the specifics between the characters, the beings, the ship, the different experiences, the different tastes, the smells, the touch, the reaching out, the understanding, the gnosis, the pizza that Paul is cooking, and I'm going, holy crap! It's happening. Remember when we started at square one, and now where we're at, and now everything they've shown has been occurring at that one step process. Take a step, and when I say putting in the work, it's not just drinking the ayahuasca as we've been talking about or smoking the DMT. Apparently, that's not the work. That's just showing you what you have to do. But if you're shown something, you're immediately held responsible for it. Thus, there's this responsibility to self and self-love and get your shit done and take care of business and whatever you want to call it. When you do that, you activate and then can go to the next step. But if you're not prepared to take that journey, it's just not going to happen. But then when it does, look what we're talking about. Look what we're discussing.
Yeah.
You know, in 2 hours, we covered...
Yeah, we covered a lot.
We covered so much, and we just grazed the surface.
And it's funny, just to share something before I forget. Was it yesterday? Yeah, what's today? Today's Thursday? No, Wednesday. Yeah, yesterday, I decided to microdose because I didn't sleep well, and I didn't feel like myself to like really, go full blast. And I got scanned, got to my location, and nobody was there. Like I stayed there for about 20 minutes, and it was like I was on cruise control. No one was there, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right, I'm out of here. I guess I'm getting, I've been getting stuff, downloads every day. So whatever's happening, obviously that's not necessary today, but it just made me think because that's never happened. Usually when one of my guys is there and something, it was like everyone was gone for lunch.
Now I talked to Paula about that, and here's what we came up with. Because you're like a multiple person that told me that this happened to them. And I kept saying, well, you got to put in work and more work and more work. But I think that's not it, because I'm not feeling that drive right now. It's kind of like a sit-back cruise control thing, and I think they might be blocking us from seeing it. Right? Like, so, surprise, here it is. So if we know it's coming, we're like, all right, I got this. And that'll change the outcome of maybe where we're at the time that we're supposed to be. You know?
I believe that. I believe that truly, because even my girl was like, you know what? I'm glad we have the information, but I don't want to think about it no more because it's driving me nuts.
Yeah.
So I need to go on. It's throwing me off. You know what I mean? Because now you're thinking, oh, there's the event. I'm like, okay, let the event come. You know what I mean? And
well, I get pissed off because then stuff never happens, but stuff's been happening. But this is a pretty big thing to happen. But
of course.
Yeah, see, it sits on our foremind. Of course, the event. Yeah.
There was this one girl talk about she doesn't want. They told her not to pay her student loan. It's like don't bother with that because the financial system change is gonna, don't waste, save your money. It's gonna change all that, and so it's kind of hard not to think about it. But like you said, if you're conscious that's happening, keep doing what you're doing, and stay focused. Before you know it, we'll be having this conversation somewhere else. Be like, remember? Yeah.
And it is what it is. But I spoke to Paula about that, and we deferred it for a while, right? Like you're gonna pay it off within the 30 years, but right now, due to Social Security, it's just you could wait a couple of years before you have to start paying again.
Yeah.
Yeah, they charge outrageous money, like over $600 a month. Right now, if you're trying to work, you're a single person working. How are you going to live anywhere paying out over $600?
Exactly. I mean, and then just remember, this whole debt thing is a way to keep you worrying, stressing. You can't thrive like that. You're never going to have the time to work on yourself if you're constantly worried about how you're going to make ends meet. And that's part of the system. But I'm confident that a lot of these things will come to pass, hopefully sooner than expected.
I think it's going to be much sooner than expected because I feel this. All right.
There's like this anxiety, like something's going to happen.
It's an anxiety, but
a
calm before the storm. Like right before the shit hits the fan, there's always like this sucking out of the air in the room and then silence. Like the birds don't sing for a second, and you're like, you notice it, and you're like, there's no cars, there's no horns being blown, I don't hear any birds, and then the shit, you're like, oh, this is nice, and then boom.
Boom. No, I know. I've been here for hurricanes, and the dogs stop howling, everything is super quiet, and all of a sudden you hear roofs being torn off.
Yeah, and it's funny. It was 70 degrees the other day, almost 70, and then I'm like, man, it's still winter here. Boom, we get hit with a nor'easter. Trees are down. I mean, monster-sized trees are down everywhere, right? Really in the expensive neighborhood, which is odd as it gets, right? And then they're like, brace yourself. There's another one coming Wednesday. And I'm like, all right, whatever. It's not going to be that bad. Boom. I just looked out my window. There's about 6 inches of snow on the ground right now. There was nothing when we started this. And the trees are bending and it's the same shit again. And I'm going, what is going on? It's 30 degrees. 2 days ago, it was 60. I'm like, and it's repeating factor over and over. And it's making me wonder, like, is this speeding up and then smashing, speeding up, smashing, speeding up, and then boom, it's just going to hit.
I've been meaning to ask you this, just a little bit off topic, but not so much. Have you noticed any chemtrails lately?
Here, yes. I've been posting some pictures once in a while of they're not even like normal looking, like they're literal X's now. Like giant X's, boom, right over the neighborhood. And I've taken pictures of them and put them up, and it makes me nauseous. But all right, so here's my take on that. The energy coming off the sun is literal information. So when you're under ire or whatever, you have an experience, or if you can just see it, it looks like lines of energy, like a giant laser blast of energy that's nonstop. Like an elevator or an escalator right up to there of energy coming into you. But it's information. Correct. I kept seeing light language. Right? And I'm like, what is that? So they chemtrail, and chemtrails are a bunch of different things that are occurring. But what's in the chemtrails? They create, they're like chaff, right? So what does that do? It creates clouds in the sky, right? But now light and information is hitting that and then fractaling off. So you're not getting a direct information upload as you're standing in the sun like you should. What happens is the information hits and then it scatters and everybody gets one piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
Yeah, it just like rains down on you in chunks, and then it takes time now to disseminate it. So what they're trying to do is slow down the process. They probably don't want us to see certain things. Right? So they're trying to time it out and whatever. They're going to just do the best they can to be the biggest fucking dicks they can be, right? Like they're gonna go down with the ship, my dude. One of the
Yeah.
things they showed me that's really crazy, if we do transform, and I say if we do because all the naysayers, I internally know what I'm going to do. So when it occurs and when it happens, there's going to be a lot of these reptilians and beings that are going to be shown. But we're going to be taken off the leash. We're allowed to live our lives now. Start with just us, with no influence from anywhere, but we're going to be in charge of hunting down some of these characters. Right? And I was saying this earlier, like, how do you...
Yeah.
What am I going to do against... Like, the reptilians have done everything to me they can. They've actually stopped. They don't really bother me. But just shy of walking in my front door and just killing me. Taking me out. Like, that's the only way it's going to work. But they can't kind of do that because our guys are protecting us from that.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a moment where... The protection is you go kick the shit out of them, not us. And I'm like, how are you going to do that? With weapons and technology, these things, you shoot them, bullets will bounce off. What are you going to do to a thing like that? I'm not Spider-Man. I don't fight the lizard, you know? And they're like, no, that's where you're wrong. And I'm like, what do you mean? And then they show the light being activating, and I'm like, oh. And they're like, oh, it's not such a awkward moment now. Right?
Correct.
Now that you have abilities to defend yourself from this stuff.
Be your true self, yeah.
Right? To be the warrior. And I'm like, I question all this all the time. I question it. I go down questioning the ship constantly. What about this? What about this? That's impossible.
Oh, right. Yeah.
but I drive that, but at the same time, I believe in all of it. I don't have no belief. Like, it's all real to me. So why not it be this? And I've already done this already. So what is my higher self going to lie to me?
Correct. And that's something that I think about often. I'm like, well, because your ego's going to fuck with your head regardless. You're like, well, what if it's, if it's them putting this in your head, thoughts in your head and this and that, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, that's not, it would, that wouldn't be necessary for them to do that. You know what I mean? Because they have other plans. I mean, as the things that they need, which is fear. You know what I mean?
Right. So they need that platform, and without that platform, they
why would they put hope out there?
Right?
But oh man. Well, I'm ready. That's all.
It comes down to that now. It's like we gave the brief overall, but I think once the event occurs, and it's one of many events, but I think this Gnosis will be like uploaded, like the 100th monkey. I think everyone will get it.
Yeah.
And then it'll be new ground again because I don't really know everything at all.
No, we know bits and pieces, like you said, what we're allowed to know for what's. But I said there's a lot of good info out there. Even let's assume 50% is washed down for whatever reason. It's still, like you said, where we are now to where we were 6 months ago is completely different.
Yeah, it's a different game. I didn't even expect this. Even though they told me stuff and it projected me into that room, kind of, I still had no idea it would be this. I'm still in shock.
Yeah.
Like
when they showed me this thing on that Tuesday, it took me like 2-3 days to like remove the smile off my face. I'm like, oh shit, it's happening. And it's at the moment it's a great experience, but then again it leaves you thinking. But like you said, you stay grounded, keep doing what you're doing, and know that it's coming. And when it comes, handle it.
Handle your business. Yeah. I would say relax through it. Don't go crazy. On my last day, the 14th day of my microdose, they showed me the solar flash. And they were like, I was like, oh, okay, I guess my trip's over, whatever. And they were like, wait, one more thing before you go. And I'm like, what's that? And then I'm literally standing outside. And I'm like, oh, the grass in my yard is beautiful. And I look up and like not far up is like a different color in the sky. And it's just coming closer to me. And it looks like when they show gas attacks.
Yes.
Right? But it's enveloping like as far as the eye can see. Right? So my first thing is panic.
Yeah.
But I see that it's so much and it's everywhere that it can't be just an attack. That would be, what is Superman attacking you? Come on. He's blowing out the whole city at one time. Like, you can, as far as your eye can see. Come on. So I'm
Yeah.
like, because it's a little open area where I am, I could see that horizon all the way down
You
to the
know,
city and stuff. You know.
I'm gonna put this out there. Just, do you know that movie Annihilation? It's supposed to come out like midweek of March. If you check out the trailer, it's about this energy that hits the earth, and it's iridescent, and
But it's the
like the being,
annihilation wave.
yeah, exactly. There the beings on the other end. So if you get a chance, check out the trailer. It's interesting how, the description and
They
the
try to
time.
put that fear of,
Yeah,
they take the truth, twist it, bend the narrative, and then give it to you so it's on your mind right as it's happening.
yep.
Right? But meanwhile, the exact opposite is occurring.
It's funny because my girl and I was like, okay, we have like a text message for certain people. It's like, just relax, don't don't collapse.
Well, this is what I didn't understand. I said, wait a second. So I'm going to be on my lawn, and they're like, just observe it. And I go, well, my brother works sanitation. What is he doing if he's picking up garbage in the middle of the city? People are driving and seeing this shit. They're going to kill each other accidentally. And they were like, nah, that's not what's going to happen. So I'm like, nah, man, you don't understand. They're like, just relax, watch what's happening. And then I look up. Now, the energy
Uh,
still didn't hit me, and it's like 20 feet over my head. And I'm going, oh, shit. And I run in the house. I tell
uh,
Paula, lay down. I lay down next to her. And
yeah,
all I could think about is my mother, my grandparents, the lady
yeah,
upstairs. They're 90 and 80. And I'm like, maybe I should run up and get them. And I go to the door again, and the energy is in the house, in the ceiling. It's everywhere. And I'm like, holy
yeah.
shit. And then I'm on the floor, and it's right by me. And I take a
Mhm.
deep breath, and when it hits me, it's the best feeling I've ever fucking felt in my life. And I stand up and go, oh no. I lay down, I grab Paula's hand, and I jump backwards on the bed, and I go, yeah. And I immediately see everyone I'm concerned about, and they're all
Uh-huh.
okay.
Oh wow.
And I'm like, just be calm. Breathe, just like an ayahuasca experience.
Just, yeah, lay down and breathe.
There's no evil beings. They didn't show me any of that shit. All right, if from in my case, all uh, my little workers, my buddies and stuff,
Yeah,
they're there. They're like in the room smiling, like you did it. That's cool.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
at this layer now, and I'm like, oh, this is great. I don't know if that's going to happen to everyone because that's a little bit of a holy shit moment on top of a holy shit moment.
yeah.
You're activating telepathy and your body and your DNA, and then all of a sudden there's beings there and other people and dead relatives, and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. But it's not quite like that. It's like an
No,
awesome
yeah.
feeling version of, you did it, welcome, and it's
I think,
happiness.
yeah, I think like those who don't know, it's going to be a gradual process of awakening, to understand what the hell's going on.
Now, let me
Nothing
ask
that.
you a question.
Mhm,
Now, what if those that aren't so-called woke a little more than the others, would they even
mhm.
see it? Right?
Well, yeah, I don't know. From what I understand, everyone is going to see it,
Okay.
and it's going to hit. You like it or there's no one can get away from it.
Everything
And
gets it. Yeah.
yeah,
There's no
yeah. So
shielding
apparent,
yourself.
you know, your level of perception, to what extent it'll change, we don't know. I mean, I know those who are evil or won't
It
make the cut.
reveals them. Yeah.
Yeah, so now from what I understand, there'll be some panic. That's when we come in and try to help out. But
I could
it's,
imagine if somebody's being, if there's beings dazzling people. In other words,
yeah,
you see them as human because they're using some kind of mind thing,
correct.
and then that turns off because it's technology, and then they're
Mm.
standing there with you. It's a they live moment, like a Roddy Piper puts on the
Oh yeah, yeah,
glasses,
yeah,
takes them off, and he's like, "What the fuck is going on here?" All right, if
yeah,
that occurs, I do not know, but I've seen that stuff. So stay calm,
yeah.
stay calm, and you'll
It's
be all
funny
right.
because Alice and Cole, and they're like, look, try to spread the word, tell your friends. Like, it's crazy as it is. Most people don't want to hear it or want to believe it. You know, until it happens. So, but
That's good for them, though. We're
yeah,
not those guys. This is what I tell people.
yeah,
This is why I don't feel selfish sometimes, and I make slight jokes. I'm like, I'm not those people. I'm here, right?
correct.
We are all connected, but don't group me in with the entire planet. And I'm going to explain why. I'm breaking through. I spent years doing this, and it's not like ayahuasca turned and DMT didn't turn into. It didn't stay DMT and ayahuasca at all.
No,
It brought me to myself. You know the story. It's just crazy. So in that process, it's like I'm out front. You know,
well,
I'm standing there with you and a couple other guys, almost like a safety net for the other beings for when it occurs. So I'm holding myself in that regard. I'm not separate
correct.
from you in every other way. I'm connected to you. I love you and whatever. But I'm not one of those that's filled with fear and victimization and all that. I'm above that,
Correct.
and I'm here
And
to help you achieve that. If that's your
if
goal,
that's what they want, yeah,
yeah. If that's your goal, I'm gonna be, and you see me, and I'm like, hey, over here, like I'll be your friend. Think of it like that. I'll just be your friend, and any knowledge I have, I'm sharing with you, no matter what. Right?
exactly.
I've gotten yelled at by certain characters in fraternities, I'll call it. Like, you're just going to give that information out, huh? I'm like, well, it took you 30 years to figure it out. It took me 30 seconds. They're like, what book are you reading? Who are you talking to? Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, if I told you my father is Ra and we speak daily, would you believe me? Oh, he's definitely insane. He's definitely insane.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, I've
well, you beat.
yeah,
You know, that I have a dragon as well. And he has
that,
dragons, and they all turned white on me when they were like, "We want to come with you, man. You said anyone that wants it, that'll put in the work, you'll take." And I said, "Well, I can't take you, but I'll bring you with me on my journey. But you got to walk the path with me." And there's a shitload that agreed, and a whole bunch
yeah,
that failed, which
yeah,
made it hurt me so much. I watched these
yeah,
beings that aren't coming, that can't make it, and they said, "You promised, you promised." And I said, "No, you promised you'd do the work. You didn't do the work, you can't fucking come." And I wasn't trying to scare anyone and lie to them. I had to go through this under ayahuasca so many times. The beings that can't make it, because they're inherently dark. They're
yeah,
gonna go a different. They're not gonna be wiped out and whatever. They're going to a different place. That's it. They'll be
yep.
eventually light beings and all that stuff. It's us. It's just that they're playing those characters, and your role is to go there. But you promised. But I can't do nothing if you don't do anything.
Well, exactly. It's not gonna,
Yeah, it's
it's
just
not
like
like you're.
ayahuasca. If you don't do the work, you ain't gonna see shit. I don't know. I just hope the information helps. We put ourselves out on a table, and I don't care anymore. I haven't in a long time in terms of what people think of me. You either take what
Oh
you
yeah.
want from the message or change the channel. If it's your job
Hey,
to hate, then go
hey,
ahead and
you
hate.
can't. I look at it this way. I did my job. You know, I did my job. I presented it to you. It's on you now.
Yeah. I'm not the savior. I'm not Jesus Christ walking around at all, you know?
And
But how
but
many people got to display the message before you jump on board, you know?
exactly. And I've like I said, I've met a few people that they'll go through the process of either ayahuasca or mushrooms, and that's it. And they think, oh, I was enlightened. I say, no, you had a trip.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, what about all this? It's like, well, what do you know? What have you done? What have you created? What have
Yeah,
how
you
much
should be able
have,
to present the change, right?
and,
Like, I'm not
and
that guy anymore. I'm not even that guy. That's when you know the ayahuasca worked and everything. When they're like, my whole life has changed. So if you just go and have the experience and you're still doing the same stuff, like Wall Street guys or
yeah,
the dudes that want to see their ICO takes off or whatever, and they all go down to Peru together, yay! A year later, if you ask them what they're doing and they're still just making money, wondering if
yeah,
their business flies off, they didn't get it, you know.
Yeah.
You got a pea-sized brain, you're going to get a pea-sized amount of consciousness information coming in.
That's true. Very true. Very true.
You know, well, I'm sure this is gonna. The people that need to hear it are going to hear it, and they're going to take with it what they need, and maybe others will just be entertained. But it's a great story, and it fills the collective consciousness. And just know we're all making that grid. Oh, and here's something I need to throw out there. So this is the deal with the grid, the new grid. It's above the illusionary grid that was wrapped around the planet, so we can connect and talk to each other and be safe and free from any illusion, right? So let's start meditating and meeting in a place above wherever it is you are in the grid. And let's start finding each other now up there. It was something that came through to me that we have to, and spoke about by one of the shaman directly to me, like, yo, we got to do this. And I'm like, okay, I'm sure it's getting done, but now we got to put that work in. You have to start meditating. You have to start going there to that spot and looking at your situation and be aware from up there, because from up there you could plan it all out. You could look down as a programmer and say, okay, I got to fix this, and this, and I'm literally going to remove the obstacles from here. And then we all work as a team, as a group. We unite.
Correct.
Because this doesn't work if we don't do that. This is why we're not just living in a giant community together. This is why we don't gather like that. The true warriors are separate. They just meet on occasion, talk, do what they have to do, and go about their business because it's their job, it's their purpose to handle that area for whatever reason. The reasons are out there. You find them out yourself. It's not our job to find that stuff out. Become the hero in your story. Step into the story that you hear us talk about. Our experiences, right? They hear the story and the journey. It's like, well, just jump on board, man.
Yeah.
Right? Don't listen to it no more. Join it.
Let your intentions be more powerful than your fears.
Yes.
That's all,
That's beautiful. That's it right there. That's it right there. We're gonna close it down. Thank you so much.
Thank you
for joining me. I love you, my brother. You're awesome.
Love you too, brother. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's been an interesting journey so far, right?
Yes.
It's going to be great when I can just open the portal and show up at your house.
Like, hey, what's up, man? What are we having for dinner?
Yeah. That's amazing.
Looking forward to it, man.
Absolutely. Well, you have a great night. Sending positive vibes to you and the family. And don't forget to check out, everybody, the podcast that pretty much changes your DNA and transcends all your definitions. So thanks for sticking with us. I love you a lot. And IamWeAreFearLess.com. And this is Frank Castle and the I Am We Are Fearless podcast.